When the second trial begins, the arena turns into a slaughterhouse. Most of the candidates panic, but our MC Onseol stays calm, backed against the wall like he's watching a corpse being examined. Then comes the real shock. In the final clash, everyone expects Nyung Woogang, the strongest, to slice Yunseol apart. Woogang swings a storm of slashes, but Yunseol keeps twisting away because he has already mastered Woogang's patterns by studying the corpses Woogang left behind. Onseol provokes him on purpose, forcing Woogang to rush in for a finishing strike aimed at the head and heart. In that one opening, Onseol ducks and drives his short sword into the weak point in the neck his grandfather taught him. Speaking of his grandfather, it all begins with our MC narrating how the old man found him abandoned in the snow, and they gave him a very nice name, Bu Yunseol. The old man went ahead to take him in and became his grandfather in the process. Apparently the old man is an undertaker, and Bu Yunseol also learned the way of undertaking from him. The old man showed him everything that it entails to be an undertaker, and Yunseol learned with passion. Even the old man complimented him, calling him a gift from the heavens. Everything was going very well for Yunseol and his grandfather until one fateful day. They were about to sleep when the old man noticed something sinister in the air, and he woke Yunseol up. He suggests that they play their usual game of playing the dead and see who can play it better. His grandfather promises to get him the clothes and sword he has always wanted if he can endure the game until sunrise. Onseol is glad to hear this, and he wastes no time agreeing to jump on the game. He slides into the small closet where he usually hides, and his grandfather urges him to stay there till the next morning. After closing the closet, the old man whips out his sword and steps outside the house to face the enemy lurking in the shadows. It turns out that the two are familiar with each other, and the enemy addresses the old man as Bujianyang, who was known as the seven-branched demonic blade. The enemy scolds Jianyang for leaving his position in the demonic palace as the vice master just to become trash in the woods. The dude unleashes his anger on Jianyang, but he is able to repel the initial attack while telling him that he became an undertaker not to become trash but to repent of his past sins. Jianyang then tells the dude that he is ready to surrender his life, but suggests that they take the fight elsewhere to avoid dragging innocent lives into their private affairs. The dude agrees to this, but warns Jianyang to get rid of any thoughts about him running. Moments later, Yunseol can no longer hold himself inside the closet and is forced to step out. Even though he wanted the promised gifts so badly, he couldn't take the cold. Yunseol is surprised when he looks around to see that his grandfather is nowhere to be found, which is usually not the case. He steps outside the house to see what appears to be damage in the ground, and this is when he realizes that something might be wrong. He frantically dashes into the woods, and to his dismay, he finds his grandfather barely holding on to life. Jianyang's back is against a tree, and he is missing both arms and eyes. Onseol rushes over to his grandfather with loads of questions going through his head. With tears in his eyes, he asks his almost dead grandfather what happened, and all the man could do was apologize. The old man lets Onseol know that he is about to die, but urges him not to continue on the path of being an undertaker. In addition, he tells Onseol to forget about avenging him, but Onseol screams out in disagreement, saying he can't forgive those who did this to Jianyang. Onseol lets Jianyang know that the only reason he is going to let go of a quest for vengeance is if he dies alongside him. As he is about to lose whatever life force he has left, Jianyang makes a last request of Yunseol. He urges him to leave the location and go far away. Before finally crashing to the ground and dying, Jianyang lets Yunseol know that he enjoyed every moment that they spent together. Onseol can only watch in horror as his grandfather finally gives up the ghost, with his blood filling up everywhere. When he finally gets Jianyang's body back to the house, Onseol is burning with hatred and vengeance. He lets the old man know that he has no intention of listening to him this time around. He examines the body, and thanks to the knowledge he has gained from the old man while he was still alive, he is able to figure out that he lost both his arms at the same time. He could figure out the time of the attack move that was enacted to get the old man down. Everything from how Jianyang lost his arms down to his eyes, Onseol could picture it all. After putting everything together, he realizes that there is only one faction that could have delivered such a move, and this is the demonic faction. Onseol also figures out that the kind of move that was used was the Tianzhu yoga technique. After examining Jianyang's back, Onseol realizes that a type of hidden weapon that could shoot multiple projectiles at once was employed during the attack. He also noticed that Jianyang's undertongue and nails are discolored, which is a clear sign of poisoning. Putting all of these together, Onseol figures out that the attacker was someone from the demonic faction who has learned the Tianzhu yoga technique and possesses a high-caliber weapon that causes poisoning. Since there cannot be many people of the same trait and technique, Onseol is determined to find the person who did this to his grandfather. Onseol wastes no time embarking on his vengeance journey, and he is soon seen signing an agreement paper. While signing the papers, one of the instructors urges him to be damn fast about stamping it, but Onseol leaves him dumbfounded when he tears open his thumb to stamp the papers with his own blood. Yoon has dedicated himself to vengeance since his grandfather died, and he doesn't see himself taking any other path aside from this. This is all the more reason he is signing up for the competition, as he sees it as the first step to enacting his revenge. In this world, the Murim is controlled by the Orthodox and the unorthodox sects, and they have been keeping each other in check. The Orthodox sects are led by the Murim alliance, since they are advocates for justice. On the other hand, the unorthodox sects are centered around the Demon Palace, which worships powers instead of justice. Even though they have been balancing each other out for a long time, the Orthodox sects decided that they wanted to push ahead. This led to the creation of the 18 martial masters, who are known as the Masters for the Greater Good. Because of the perceived threat, the Demon Palace decided to advance its power too. In an attempt to do this, they come up with a plan to create the 10 Demon Masters. The unorthodox sect is looking to pick 10 talented young ones and teach them the martial arts of the demonic sects. To make it interesting, they don't care about their past affiliations or what they were doing before they opt into the competition. Because of this clause, loads of young men headed to the Demon Palace, and one of them was our guy, Eunseol. While standing among the crowd of fellow youngsters like himself, Eunseol can feel the threatening aura coming from them, and he figures out that one of them is likely associated with the killer of his grandfather. Since his target is someone of high proficiency, Eunseol knows he has to become a martial master to have a chance against them. This is why he is determined to become one of the 10 Demon Masters, so he can acquire the strength that he needs to face his adversary. Moments later, a giant, scary-looking man emerges to address the potential Demon Masters, and he introduces himself as head instructor Hyuk Ryeonyoung. The lads are all blown away when Hyuk lets them know who he is, and it appears that he is somewhat popular because of his works. Hyuk lets them know that they are there to identify the greatest prodigies among all the demon sects, and only those who pass through the trials prepared by them will become candidates to become one of the 10 Demon Masters. And for the first trial, he tells them that martial artists of the Demon Palace will inspect their physicality. The moment the lads hear this, they start to grumble because they don't see this as a trial, since they were expecting something quite intense for the competition. The martial masters ignore their worries and start to inspect their physical bodies to see who is worthy or not. Those who have bulky bodies, on the other hand, are relieved and happy that they get a free pass to the next stage. One of the instructors, Jin Gak, walks up to Eunseol to inspect his body. The moment he touches his body, he thinks to himself that Eunseol is dead. He wonders why Eunseol decided to participate in the first place, but he notices the terrifying killing intent emanating from Eunseol's body. Nonetheless, Jin Gak figures out that it would be disastrous if he allowed Eunseol to pass on to the next stage. Because of this, he doesn't allow him to go through, and Eunseol is not surprised. He already knows that he has no chance of passing because he doesn't have the physical body, since all he has been doing all his life is looking after corpses. However, Eunseol is convinced that they have not gotten to the end yet. Moments later, the instructor tells them that the first trial is over, and one of the lads erupts in anger, protesting that their way of doing things is unfair. He asks why they are bothering to host a competition when physical aptitude is all that they are concerned about. Hyuk then replies by telling the kid that he knows nothing. Hyuk says the most important thing when learning martial arts is the muscles and bones. Hyuk makes fun of the dude for failing their most basic standard, even though they made sure to open their door to all. The lad argues that they are supposed to get an opportunity, and this is when Hyuk replies that he has nothing to worry about because the second trial is coming, and he plans to pick those who can learn martial arts even with their poor physical state. Hyuk wastes no time announcing that they have gotten to the second trial. Surprisingly, the second trial requires that they fight each other to survive until there is only one person left. The majority of the lads are surprised to hear the instruction given to them, but the overstimulated lad from earlier wastes no time locking in. Since he is required to kill someone, his sights are locked in on his targets already, and this target appears to be Eunseol. He immediately grabs a spear and hurls it in Eunseol's direction with the fierce determination to send him to the afterlife. The spear ferociously aimed toward Eunseol's position, but in the end, it turns out that he isn't the target. The spear impaled the dude standing beside him, wearing red, who happens to be a rival of the attacker. The dude in red screams in pain as he falls to the ground and coughs up blood before dying. The blood from the attack splatters on Eunseol's face as he watches the dude lying in a pool of his own blood. Eunseol cannot believe that he is staring at a dead dude who has just been struck to death with a spear. With just a glance, Eunseol can figure out the circumstances surrounding the dude's death. He figures out that the spear struck the heart while narrowly missing the ribs, which is a clear indication that the attacker, Woonchung, is quite agile. Woonchung starts boasting since he has taken down an opponent already. From where he is standing, Hyuk figures out that Woonchung can make quick decisions, but he believes that he lacks common sense. He is disappointed and concludes that the lads are a bunch of fools. Jin Gak agrees with him because showing oneself as a threat in such an environment will only place a target on one's back. Nonetheless, He believes that this would cause the other competitors to become serious and realize how deadly the situation is. In no time, chaos erupts, and the entire arena turns into a slaughterhouse. The younger lads who are not used to the sight of death start to panic, but Hyuk and Jingak suddenly notice one of the lads acting pretty cool. He is backed against the wall, and he is not concerned with the chaos happening in front of him. He also sees Onseol acting cool-headed in the midst of the chaos, and this makes him retract his initial statement that they are all fools. Onseol remains in a calm state as he believes that the lads are fools because they have all lost themselves to the fear of death. The command was to stay alive till the end, which means the most important thing is to stay alive, not to kill. Onseol figures out that he can survive if he is able to think rationally and act coldly. Yunseol bows down to touch the bodies lying on the ground to ascertain how they died. While doing this, one of the lads wielding a long-range weapon notices Yunseol and realizes that he has not been participating in the whole chaos. Meanwhile, Onseol is focused on assessing the bodies to know the type of moves that killed them. The guy watching him is pissed, and he hurls his weapon at Yunseol. The weapon barely misses Yunseol's head and shatters the box he is carrying on his back. The dude makes fun of Yunseol, asking him the essence of the box he is carrying, as he is a monk. It turns out that the box contained the birthday gifts he got from his grandfather, and destroying the box just made him mad. Inside it is a short sword, but the attacking dude doesn't think Yunseol has what it takes to fight him. He makes fun of Yunseol, saying he has a puny sword, but while he is distracted with Onseol, the cool dude from earlier appears behind him and cuts him down. The cool dude then boastfully tells Onseol that he doesn't need to thank him because he served as the best distraction to kill his opponent. While saying all of these, Onseol is focused on what he is doing, and he continues to ignore the dude. The dude can see that Yunseol knows no martial arts, and he believes that he is an easy prey. While focused on Onseol, a dude appears from behind and tries to attack him, but he easily cuts him down as if he has eyes behind him. Hyuk then asks Jin-gak about the cool dude because he is holding a special sword known as the Extermination Sword. He wants to know why he is carrying the legacy sword of the Black Soul, which was hailed as the strongest wanderer swordsman. Jin-gak reveals that the dude's name is Nung Wugong, and there are reports that he discovered Black Soul's secret manual, accompanied by his sword. Apparently, Wugong trained using the manual, making him the sole disciple of Black Soul. Jin-gak says Wugong might lack physicality, but he is still the favorite to win the competition because there is no candidate who appears to be stronger than him. However, Jin-gak believes that things might change depending on unforeseen variables. After the chaos settles down, Wugong and Unseol are the last surviving candidates, and Wugong expresses his shock that Yunseol was able to make it to the end. Wugong boastfully tells Yunseol that he will be considered a candidate of the 10 Demon Masters if he kills him, so he is eager to do that already. Even though Yunseol knows that he is going up against what appears to be the strongest guy in the arena, he doesn't look scared as he maintains his usual cold expression, and this is because he has found out what his weakness is. Yunseol arms himself with his short sword with the confidence that he can actually win the fight. Wugong decides to play with Yunseol a little by swinging his sword at him while delivering several slashes at the same time. Surprisingly, Yunseol is able to dodge all of the slashes without sustaining a serious injury to his body. Hyuk and Jin-gak are watching this from afar, and even though it looks like Yunseol is getting trashed, they can see that Yunseol was able to twist his body enough at the end of each strike to avoid a fatal wound. It suddenly dawns on Jin-gak that Yunseol has mastered Wugong's attack patterns by examining the corpses that he left behind. Jin-gak is blown away by the level of observation that Yunseol possesses. Yunseol decides to provoke Wugong by telling him that his sword skills are trash because all he has done is slice his flesh and cause no real damage. Jin-gak senses the fact that Yunseol is provoking Wugong, but he is worried that he might not be able to land the decisive counterattack that is needed to finish the fight. Yunseol's plan works, and Wugong gets so pissed that he angrily goes after him in an attempt to finish him off. As Wugong dashes toward Yunseol, Yunseol figures out that he has just one chance, and he is able to figure out what to do thanks to the corpses that he has examined. He has noticed that Wugong's finishing strike instinctively aims for the opponent's vital points, which are the heart and head. Since this is the case, Yunseol already cooked up a plan in preparation. Just as Wugong's sword is about to reach him, Yunseol bows down, ultimately dodging the incoming attack, leaving Wugong pretty open to Unseol's attack. In the past, his grandfather had told him about the specific position in the neck that is vulnerable to almost all martial artists. Even a child can take down a martial artist if they strike the acupoint with precision and the required strength that is needed to puncture the area. This is the exact position that Yunseol is targeting, and without realizing it, Wugong has exposed himself for Yunseol's short sword to push through. With no room to react, Wugong finds his neck hanging from Yunseol's short sword, with his blood pouring out excessively. In the end, Wugong's body crashes to the ground, leaving Yunseol as the sole survivor of the battle. Jin-gak and Hyuk are both shocked to see this, as it turns out to be the unexpected variable that Jin-gak was talking about. Hyuk was disappointed that Woogang died to Unseol because he had high expectations, since he was using the sword arts of the Black Soul. Nonetheless, Hyuk has no choice but to declare Unseol as the winner of the second trial. Unseol suddenly sees himself in a blank space with his grandfather standing in the distance. He excitedly rushes over to his grandfather, but his joy fades away when his grandfather turns around with no eyes. His grandfather frantically tells him that he can't see him, and a wave of reality immediately hits Unseol. Just then, Unseol jerks back to life and realizes that he is on a ship. He realized that he must have fainted from the loss of blood, but he realized something surprising. He knows that he suffered fatal injuries from the fight, but he is not feeling any pain from the said injuries. He realizes that he must have been treated by a high-level physician from the demonic palace. He also notices that the other dudes standing on the ship all look well-trained, and this is when it dawns on him that they must have been the ones who survived the first trial. Moments later, the latch above them opens, and Jin-gak appears, telling them to disembark because they have reached their destination, which is the next trial area called Hell Island. Jin-gak yells at the candidates, telling them to follow him as he leads them to a block of caves, which will serve as their living quarters. He tells them to discard their previous clothes and weapons and step out of the caves after they are done wearing the prepared clothes and swords. Apparently, they are allowed to pick a cave that they think would suit them best. In no time, Unseol has spotted what appears to be the best place that he can stay. On the other hand, two dudes are arguing over who should pick a particular spot, with both claiming that they have a right to it. A third party soon shows up, urging them to stop fighting over the caves because there are loads of nice spots for them to choose from. Deep down, Unseol is making fun of the candidates because none of them know what happened during the second trial, and they all have their guards lowered. Unseol notices that most of them are wearing expensive clothes, which is an indication that they might all be members of prestigious clans. Unseol finally figures out that the second trial was an avenue for them to weed out those whom they can kill. While he is busy standing and assessing the situation, Jin-gak appears behind him, asking him why he hasn't chosen a cave yet, because he has been rather sluggish since the start of everything. It turns out that Jin-gak has been interested in Unseol since the last trial, and he is waiting to see which cave he would pick. He urges him to pick quickly, and Unseol points to the cave with a small entrance. The cave also has mud spilling out of it, and one of the candidates makes fun of him for picking a cave befitting his status. On the other hand, Jin-gak is extremely impressed, and he considers Unseol nothing but a genius because of his choice. The cave might appear to be small, but that is just for the entrance, and the inside of the cave is large enough to train in. In addition, the tiny entrance helps to defend against intruders, and most people avoid the cave after seeing the entrance. But Jin-gak is pleased that Unseol gauged everything very well. Moments later, the candidates step out of the caves wearing their black attire, and they all gather to hear what Jin-gak has to say. Jin-gak explains that the Hell Island is home to 10 martial arts facilities, and they can learn one of the 10 demonic sects martial arts in each of the buildings. Apparently, they are free to learn all of the arts or focus on just one in particular. To add to this, they have the freedom over their schedule, as they can sleep, play, train, or do whatever suits them. Unseol is shocked to hear this because the second trial was nothing but a hellhole, and he doesn't believe that they are going to leave them to do whatever they want. The candidates waste no time debating which arts they are supposed to learn first. The majority thinks the Fire Rain Sword Sect's martial arts are the right choice, as they are considered to be the strongest. Unseol watches as they all run toward the Fire Rain building, which is considered to be the strongest sect. Unseol agrees that the Fire Rain is amazing, but doesn't think it would be helpful to him, since he has never learned martial arts before. He wastes no time figuring out the martial arts that would be more useful to him. Unseol then walks over to the Wandering Beast Pavilion, which is a ragged-looking building. Apparently, the sect has gone down the drain over the years, and they barely stand among the 10 demon sects. The only reason they are still maintaining their status is because of their history of producing a bunch of strong martial artists over the years. Unseol remembers his grandfather telling him about the sect some time ago. Suddenly, Unseol notices movements in the ground, and before he knows it, a head pops out of the ground. The dude asks him if he has come to the building with the hopes of becoming one of the 10 demon masters. It turns out that the dude is the master of the Wandering Beast Pavilion, Sa-woo. Unseol finally pulls himself together, and he tells Sa-woo that he has come to learn the martial arts of the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Sa-woo takes a quick glance at Unseol and sees how frail his body is. After assessing the situation, he tells Unseol to leave because he has no intention of teaching him martial arts. He lets Unseol know that he is a fragile kid and might just die from the training. Unseol tries to plead his case by telling Sa-woo that he has heard that he can survive anything if he learns the martial arts of the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Sa-woo expresses his shock that Unseol even knows about wandering martial arts since it is about to go extinct. Nonetheless, Sa-woo lets Unseol know that their martial arts are pretty difficult to learn, and this even applies to those who have considered themselves to be geniuses. Sa-woo says their martial arts starts with the modification of the body, and with the way he sees it, Eunseol is just going to die in a day if he tries to attempt their training. He suggests that Eunseol leave, but Eunseol suddenly pulls a genius move by bowing to Sa-woo and thanking him for agreeing to teach him their martial arts. This is enough to tell Sa-woo that he is dealing with a crazy fellow, and this forces him to finally agree to become Eunseol's master. However, Sa-woo lets Eunseol know that he is only teaching him because the Demon Palace ordered him to. Sa-woo finally steps out from under the ground and tells Eunseol to start calling him Master Sa. Eunseol introduces himself, but Sa-woo stops him, telling him that he is just a trainee number 1. Without wasting time, Sa-woo suggests that they get started with the training, and he raises his hand while making a peculiar finger gesture. Eunseol is suddenly hit with a strong wave, and before he knows it, he realizes that he has gone blind. Before he starts to panic, Sa-woo tells him not to worry because he only sealed his vision temporarily, using one of the secret techniques of the sect. Sa-woo claims that this is a necessary step in learning the Wandering Beast Path, which is a basic martial technique of the sect. Eunseol is confused by all he just heard, and Sa-woo explains that the Wandering Beast Path is meant to heighten all of his senses and give him reflexes comparable to a beast's. Sa-woo reveals that the sect's martial arts are unlike the other sects because it varies depending on the person learning them. This is the reason the Wandering Beast Path, which is considered a basic technique, is also hard, causing just a few to learn it or master it. However, Sa-woo lets Eunseol know that if he can learn it, he is going to earn the senses of a wandering beast. Sa-woo confidently teases that most die before getting to this point. He then tells Eunseol that he will be back in about an hour and urges Eunseol to get used to being blind by then. After Sa-woo's departure, Eunseol realizes that he is wrong about something. He thought his other senses would become sharper since he had lost his vision, but it doesn't appear that way. He remembers Sa-woo saying it would take an hour for him to get back, and he realizes that it is a very long time on his path. He figures out that he has to adjust as quickly as possible because he is in a competition, and if he is suddenly ambushed in his current situation, he is done for. Eunseol immediately imagines himself getting ambushed, sending a sense of fear and adrenaline through his body that pushes him to jump from point A to point B. However, Eunseol loses, and he figures out that working on his balance is quite important, since he has lost his vision. An hour later, Sa-woo returns, hoping to see Eunseol running around the place in fear, but to his utmost surprise, he sees Eunseol jumping around, which is something quite unique. Sa-woo realizes that Eunseol is imagining a fake enemy, which is why he has adjusted to his lack of vision pretty quickly. Nonetheless, Sa-woo stands unimpressed, and he decides to test Eunseol. He swings his sword at him, telling him to try to evade it. The training between the two then continues, and 3 days later, Eunseol has gotten himself beaten up multiple times by Sa-woo. Sa-woo is surprised that Eunseol hasn't started questioning his training method, but is accepting it instead. Sa-woo then asks Eunseol why he is not saying anything or questioning his training method. Eunseol replies that Sa-woo had initially said the essence of the Wandering Night Pavilion's martial arts is reaching enlightenment, and because of this, he believes that there is a reason behind everything that he is doing. Sa-woo is impressed by Eunseol's answer, and he tells him that he is actually right with his answer. He then suggests that they continue their training. Sa-woo charges toward Eunseol, but this time around, Eunseol's senses kick in, and he can suddenly feel Sa-woo's movement toward him. Even though he can see it, he realizes that he can't dodge it, leaving him with just one option, which is to block the attack. In the last second of the attack, Eunseol raises his sword, and he manages to block Sa-woo's attack before it lands. This shocks Sa-woo to his bones because he wasn't expecting Eunseol to be able to do this just after 3 days. Nonetheless, Eunseol's block was sufficient, and the attack still sent him on his arse. Just then, Sa-woo throws a bamboo bottle at him, telling him to drink the contents of the bottle. Eunseol drinks it, expecting water, but to his surprise, it isn't. Before he knows it, energy is already surging through his body, and it is as if all of his lost nutrients are being replenished. It turns out that liquid is the spring spiritual water that Sa-woo had saved all of his life. Even though Sa-woo gave it out, he is not worried that it was a waste, and this is because he believes that he has just met the once-in-a-lifetime genius that he has been begging for all of his life. After regaining his strength, the training begins again, and they go at each other with high intensity. After swinging at each for a couple of minutes, Sa-woo suddenly stopped attacking and burst out laughing, as he had finally found what he was looking for the whole time. Suddenly, Eunseol realizes that he can see again, and with a voice laced with honesty, Sa-woo urges him to forget about becoming one of the 10 demon masters and become an official disciple of his sect instead. Sa-woo assures him that he will make him one of the top 10 strongest martial masters of the demonic faction in just 10 years if he agrees to this. When Eunseol hears this, he is heavily tempted by the offer because he doesn't think Sa-woo is lying, but then he remembers that his grandfather's killer is a skilled warrior. Because of this, Eunseol doesn't think he would be satisfied with learning just the Wandering Beast Pavilion's martial arts. Eunseol then humbly rejects the offer, telling Sa-woo that he wants to become a demon master. Sa-woo then tells him that he can forget about the fact that he can learn the 10 demonic sect's martial arts, because it is even impossible for someone like the Grand Heavenly Demon Emperor, who has enough talents to create martial arts of his own. Sa-woo continues by saying every martial art is suited for a certain physique and a type of energy. Eunseol mentions that no matter how talented a person is, they can only learn 2 or 3 types of martial arts, which is why focusing on one martial art is the shortcut to becoming the strongest in the demonic faction. Even with all of his preaching, Eunseol shows no sign of changing his mind, leaving Sa-woo no choice but to back off. Even though he is disappointed, he tells Eunseol that he is going to teach him a different martial art. Eunseol is surprised to hear this, because he has only learned the basics of the Wandering Beast sect, and Sa-woo lets him know that the sect's arts are not transmitted through steps or theory. In addition to this, Sa-woo tells Eunseol that he has been practicing the wild beast path of his sect. This is when it dawns on Eunseol that all of the sword strikes that Sa-woo unleashed on him were actual forms of the wild beast path. Eunseol is extremely grateful for this, and he bows to Sa-woo, thanking him for his help so far. Sa-woo urges Eunseol to stop thanking him because it was merely the order of the Demon Palace. Eunseol, on the other hand, argues that he will never forget what Sa-woo did for him because he even gave him elixirs, but Sa-woo urges him to forget about it. Sa-woo mentions that this is how the Jianghu is, and it would be much better for him if he could forget about favors and grudges. With everything settled, Eunseol goes on his knees to bow to Sa-woo before finally leaving. Sa-woo watches him in shock and utmost respect as he walks away, wondering where such a gem came from. As Eunseol walks through the forest, he realizes that he is basically sensing everything going on around him, and he wonders if this is because he has learned the wild beast path. Because of how exhausting it is, Eunseol figures out that he has to find a way to control it, because he would never be able to rest properly if this continues. At that moment, he decides to suppress his senses as much as he can. He is able to get this done, and he realizes that there is a clear difference in what appears to be normal and his usual heightened senses. Eunseol then whips out his map to look at where he should learn next. It dawns on him that they are on a time-limited training, and he needs to hurry. After thinking over it very well, he figures out that he has to go to the demonic sect founder who rivaled the great heavenly demon emperor 700 years ago, and talking about this, he is the founder of the Fire Rain Sword sect. Because there might not be time on his side, Eunseol figures out that the strongest sect of the 10 demonic sects might be his only option. Upon arriving at the building, he realizes that it is quite exclusive when compared to the Wandering Beast Pavilion's martial hall. He knocks on the door, and the instructor from inside wonders who it might be. The instructor Jin-gak opens the door, and he is shocked when he sees Eunseol at the door. Eunseol bows to him, telling him that he has come to learn the martial arts of the Fire Rain Sword sect. Even Eunseol is shocked when he realizes that Jin-gak is a martial master from the Fire Rain Sword sect. Jin-gak tells Eunseol to follow him, and he lets him know that the candidates who entered earlier have already completed the elementary trial and have moved on to the intermediate trial. Apparently, there are 3 sections there, which are the elementary, intermediate, and advanced levels. Jin-gak then asks him why he is just coming to the Fire Rain sect after 2 weeks, and Eunseol reveals that he was learning martial arts at the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Jin-gak then casually asks if he has learned the Wild Beast path, and Eunseol affirms this, shocking Jin-gak. He doesn't want to believe that Eunseol actually mastered the Wild Beast path in just 2 weeks, even though he is pretty sure that he is a genius. He believes that Sa-woo sent him on his way after he couldn't cope with him. Once they reach the training hall, Jin-gak gets serious, and he introduces himself to Eunseol, revealing that he is the one in charge of the beginner trial. Jin-gak asks Eunseol if he is really interested in learning the Fire Rain sword art because it would be better for him to head to another martial arts hall. Eunseol replies that he appreciates Jin-gak's concern, but lets him know that he is interested in the sword arts of the Fire Rain sword sect. Since this is the case, Jin-gak slams his foot on the ground and a training manual appears beside him. Jin-gak tells Eunseol that the manual is the introductory form and practical method of the Fire Rain's 13 forms. He urges him to study the manual and train himself. However, Eunseol is confused because all he can see are strokes written on a large note with no idea of what he is supposed to do about it. Jin-gak is shocked when he hears this, forcing him to ask Eunseol if he can read a sword manual. Eunseol then gives him a more shocking answer, telling him that he actually can't because up until the competition he has never learned anything about swordsmanship. This answer sends shivers down Jin-gak's spine, leaving him totally dumbfounded. Jin-gak is forced to ask again, and Eunseol affirms this, saying he had no prior knowledge of martial arts. Instead of being disappointed, Jin-gak is actually impressed because he has seen what Eunseol has done so far, and he figures out that if he is properly taught, he would go on to be exceptional. Jin-gak then asks Eunseol if he can read even if he can't see or follow the sword steps, and Eunseol says yes. Yoon-sil then reads out the writing in the manual, which is basically instructions to follow before practicing the moves in the manual. Yoon-sil tries to follow the guide, but he ends up doing rubbish, leaving Jin-gak in extreme shock. He can't believe that he is about to start teaching Yoon-sil how to properly move or carry himself in a place where they are supposed to pick one of the 10 demon masters. Jin-gak moves over to Yoon-sil and positions his body as it is supposed to be, telling him how to relax his body so his core will not be tense. Immediately, Jin-gak explains this. Yoon-sil fixes his posture, and Jin-gak is ultimately impressed that Yoon-sil understood without stressing him. Since his posture has been fixed, Jin-gak tells Yoon-sil that he is going to teach him the Fire Rain 13 forms without further delay. He hands him a sword and starts showing him how to move his body in the right adjustments and precision. Just as usual, Yoon-sil is able to follow everything that Jin-gak is showing in the right way. Jin-gak stands watching, and he is totally impressed, leaving him to accept the reality that Yoon-sil is nothing short of being talented. After sessions of training, Jin-gak tells him to imagine an enemy in front of him and use the Fire Rain 13 forms. Yoon-sil is initially confused by what Jin-gak means by creating a fake enemy, but Jin-gak explains that this is the criterion that he needs to pass if he wants to make his way to the intermediate hall. Apparently, this is to see the sword intent present in his basic moves. The moment Yoon-sil hears this, he realizes that he has finally gotten the chance to prove himself, and he needs to do it quickly, since the chance came on early. Just as expected, the enemy he imagines is none other than the dude who sent his grandfather to the afterlife. Yoon-sil draws his sword and unleashes the first form of the Fire Rain, 13 forms with precision and fury. Jin-gak is stunned when he sees the way Yoon-sil is moving with the sword and executing the moves. Yoon-sil continues moving through the 13 forms, but Jin-gak soon notices that there is a modification to the Fire Rain 13 forms. The sword technique is usually soft and spirited, but Yoon-sil is using the technique in such a sharp way. Jin-gak cannot believe what is happening in front of him, because changing the basic moves of a sword technique is something possible only for a grandmaster. Jin-gak also notices that the sword moves are embedded with scary killing intent, just as if he were facing someone who has deeply hurt him. Jin-gak doesn't want to believe that the sword moves of the Fire Rain sect, which is considered orthodox, are being changed as if they were nothing. Because of this, he starts realizing that Yoon-sil must have had a unique life while growing up. In no time, Yoon-sil also notices that he is already altering the Fire Rain sect 13 forms. He wonders if the wild beast path is the reason for this, and even though he would have loved to infuse the two fighting styles, he figures out that it would end up becoming an entirely different swordsmanship and not the Fire Rain 13 forms. With this in mind, he quickly switches back to the natural Fire Rain 13 forms, and this time around, he looks even more dangerous than before. He imagines his target in front of him, and he starts unleashing all the fury inside him. Jin-gak watches in amazement, and he is forced to admit that Yoon-sil is incredibly fast. As he gets closer to his target, Yoon-sil loses himself in the moment, and as if his target is real, he figures out that he can't allow his target to escape. Because of this, he decides to use all the techniques he has left in one go. Yoon-sil releases all his fury at once and delivers several dangerous slashes to make sure he takes his enemy down, but he does this in such a way that it affects him, causing him to lose his balance and grip on his sword. Jin-gak watches as Yoon-sil loses to his opponent, but instead of being mad, he is actually impressed. Yoon-sil is shocked when he hears Jin-gak tell him that he passed the test. Jin-gak then explains to him that what is actually tested is his understanding of the sword and his execution of the Fire Rain 13 forms in a real fight. Jin-gak helps Yoon-sil pick up his sword, and he tells him that he passed the criteria set for the test. Jin-gak lets Yoon-sil know that his Fire Rain technique is quite incredible, and he urges him to head to the intermediate chamber. Yoon-sil is extremely grateful for what Jin-gak did for him because he knows how annoying and stressful it must have been to teach him about swordsmanship when he had no prior knowledge of it. Yoon-sil shows his gratitude by bowing to Jin-gak, thanking him for everything so far. Jin-gak then tells Yoon-sil to continue working hard, and then mentions that he could sense the strong killing intent coming from his sword. As his last advice, Jin-gak urges Yoon-sil not to lose himself because of the killing intent. As they say their goodbyes, Jin-gak finally understands the fact that Yoon-sil learned the wild beast path in just 2 weeks because his learning speed is incredible. Because of this, he is even moving to the intermediate chamber way faster than Jin-gak himself expected. Jin-gak was initially doubtful of Yoon-sil's capability of making it to the intermediate chamber, but after their session together, he is certain that he would. In addition, Jin-gak is pretty confident that the intermediate chamber instructor, Cheon Woogang, would be obsessed with Yoon-sil by the time he spends some time with him. Yoon-sil soon makes his way into the intermediate chamber, and the instructor doesn't welcome him with warm hands, as he urges Yoon-sil to buzz off because they are full already. Cheon is acting cold toward him because he is not impressed with the fact that Yoon-sil just passed the elementary chamber after weeks of training. Cheon says Yoon-sil has no chance in the intermediate chamber with the type of talent that he has. In his defense, Eunseol explains to Cheon that he came late because he spent time training at the Wandering Beast Pavilion. When Cheon hears this, he is still not impressed, as he believes that Eunseol must have escaped from the wild beast training thanks to the intense training over there. However, since Eunseol passed the elementary test, Cheon has no choice but to tell him to take his seat with the rest of the candidates. Cheon then continues his teaching, telling the candidates that the fire rain thundering sword that they are about to learn is made of rapid movements, and if they are not skilled with the sword, they are going to end up harming themselves. Cheon continues by saying the thundering sword is pretty hard to use in combat, just like the fire rain 13 forms. Nonetheless, they are required to learn it because it is a basic martial art, and the main focus is to sharpen their prowess with the sword, not to win. Cheon then calls forward one of the candidates, Bayok Hansung. For their practical purpose, Cheon tells him to pick an opponent to duel. Bayok smiles evilly before asking if he is allowed to pick anyone of his choice, and Cheon says yes. Just as expected, Bayok points to Eunseol, saying he wants him as his opponent. Cheon wants to debate this, but Bayok reminds him that he already told him that he can pick anyone. Cheon still tries to fight the decision by asking Bayok how he plans to test his knowledge against someone who just joined the class. Cheon urges Bayok to pick someone else, but Eunseol suddenly cuts in, telling the instructor that he is fine with it. Cheon is shocked to hear this, and Eunseol tells Cheon that he learned how to use the sword from Jingak. Eunseol says he believes that he has a better chance at learning if he practices against others. To Cheon, Eunseol is only trying to protect his ego, but he is not going to stop him. Cheon then tells them to go ahead, saying he hopes that they can reach the advanced chamber. Bayok, on the other hand, considers himself the luckiest dude on the planet because he just got himself a rookie that he can trash in whatever way he likes. He is even planning to kill Eunseol so he can show how skillful he is to the rest of the class. The two then arm themselves with wooden swords in preparation for the battle. Bayok commends Eunseol for his bravery, but tells him that he needs more than bravery if he is going to survive in the Murim. Bayok wastes no time dashing toward Eunseol, but Eunseol easily dodges his attack. Bayok is impressed, but believes that Eunseol won't be able to keep it up. He goes hard again, forcing Cheon to block his next attack with his sword instead of dodging. With the way their swords are hitting each other, Bayok can see that Cheon is truly a beginner, and this makes him even happier. Bayok continues having fun with Cheon and even unleashes the thundering sword technique, but Eunseol remains calm-headed as he dodges everything that Bayok throws at him. At this point, frustration has started setting in, and Cheon can see this. He figures out that Bayok might not be skilled with the sword, but at the same time, Eunseol is dodging everything as if he is predicting Bayok's moves. This starts to convince Cheon that Eunseol might have truly learned the wild beast path. Since he is a martial artist, he knows how difficult it is to learn the wild beast path even though it is just a basic technique. Because it is usually learnt by experienced martial masters, Bayok doesn't want to believe that Eunseol has learned it in just 2 weeks. Cheon decides to make everything serious, and he tells Eunseol that the duel is not only about dodging because he is watching to see their sword skills and to also test their reflexes. Upon hearing this, Eunseol decides to get serious with Bayok, and he goes after him with the Fire Rain 13 forms. However, Bayok doesn't feel any form of threat from the technique because it appears to be slightly different from the 13 forms. He is confident enough to think he can actually dodge the slash with little to no effort. However, he soon realizes that he might actually be wrong because the sword technique comes at him so hard that he finds himself struggling. Several questions start running through Bayok's head as he wonders if Eunseol was intentionally testing him with a variant of the 13 forms just so he can mock him. He also wonders if Eunseol is doing this to get noticed by the instructor, so he can be automatically promoted to the advanced chamber. Realizing that with the way things are going, he is going to be disgraced, Bayok decides to tap into another sword style, the Asura sword style. He delivers the blood-shattering strike in an attempt to finish off Eunseol in one go. Apparently, the sword style is a lethal move of the Asura sword sect, and since Cheon didn't restrict the type of sword styles that they can use, he cannot stop the fight. Suddenly, Cheon notices that even with the fact that Eunseol is going up against a dangerous fighting style, he has maintained his balance. The thought of Eunseol actually learning the wild beast path crosses his mind yet again, even though he still doesn't want to believe. Eunseol continues dodging the attacks coming at him, forcing Bayok to resort to an even deadlier technique, the Bloody Wind Warping Moon. Even Cheon is dumbfounded when he sees this, and he watches in horror as Bayok leaps into the air toward Eunseol. Everything happens so fast, and by the time everything becomes clear to everyone, Eunseol's sword is pushing toward Bayok's chest with the help of the Fire Rain 13th form. Eunseol looks pretty cool as he retracts his sword, and Bayok coughs up blood before crashing to the ground, seemingly appearing to have died from Eunseol's strike. Everyone's eyes light up in shock and horror as they all try to digest the fact that Bayok might actually be dead. Eunseol walks away to return the training sword, and Cheon stands over Byok's body to see that he is truly dead because he got hit in a very vital spot. Cheon then turns to Eunseol, asking him if he has always been a disciple of the Wandering Night Pavilion, but he says no. Cheon is forced to ask him if he truly mastered the wild beast path in just 2 weeks, and Eunseol replies that all he did was learn the basics of the whole thing. Cheon smiles in disgust when he hears this, since what he just witnessed doesn't appear to be basic in any way or form. He teases Eunseol, asking him if he has been taught how to learn too. Eunseol tries to defend himself, but Cheon cuts him off, telling him to clean up the mess he made. Grumbling soon erupts among the candidates, who believe that it is wrong that Eunseol committed murder during a normal sparring session. They all expect him to be punished for this, but Cheon quickly clears up their mistake. He lets them know that it might be called a martial chamber, but they should not mistake it for one. He reminds them that they are on Hell Island, and if they use a technique that is meant to kill the opponent, they should expect the same to be used against them. With this in mind, Cheon begins the training session again, and the candidates start sparring against each other. Those lost during the sparring session are all sent away by Cheon as he tells them that they have failed the trial. He tells them that they are all free to find another martial hall that would accommodate them because their time with the Fire Rain sect is over. The failed candidates ask for more chances, but Cheon tells them that they are not getting any more chances. Cheon says they might have passed the first trial because they were fit, but to learn the Fire Rain sword they are going to need potential and talent to surpass even their own limits. Since they lacked the qualities to surpass their own limits, they failed. After the failed candidates and the successful candidates left the hall, Cheon notices that Eunseol is still in the hall, and he asks him what he is still doing there. Confused, Eunseol asks Cheon if he is required to leave too, and Cheon says yes. He tells him that he won and has gained the status to pass on to the advanced chamber. However, Eunseol tells Cheon that he would rather stay in the intermediate chamber. Cheon is confused and asks Eunseol why he would choose to do that. Eunseol explains that the only technique he learned was the Fire Rain 13 forms, and he has yet to learn anything in the intermediate chamber. Cheon is surprised that Eunseol learned the Wild Beast path, which allowed him to see through Byok's attack, but he claims that he hasn't learned anything. Without being apologetic, Eunseol maintains his stance that he has yet to learn anything. Realizing that Eunseol has no intention of giving up, Cheon has no choice but to agree to teach him the Fire Rain Thundering Sword, which is the upgrade of the Fire Rain 13 forms. However, he lets Eunseol know that he hates it when people try to play tricks on him in an attempt to make an impression. He sternly tells Eunseol that he is going to behead him if he finds out that he has learned any other sword technique other than the Fire Rain 13 forms. 4 days after this, Eunseol is still training under Cheon, and they have gone through rigorous sessions together. Cheon has checked through all the manners that he knows while training Eunseol and has confirmed that he truly lacks the fundamentals of sword techniques. Even though he just started learning the sword techniques, his determination and concentration are something worth noting. Cheon can see the fierce determination written all over Eunseol's face as if he would die if he didn't learn martial arts. Cheon finally realized how it was possible for Eunseol to learn the Wild Beast path in just a fortnight. To make it interesting, Eunseol is already wielding the Thundering Sword technique, showing just how crazy his learning speed is. Eunseol is going hard just as usual when Cheon tells him to stop, telling him that he has learned the principles of the Fire Rain Thundering Sword. Eunseol is skeptical when he hears this, and Cheon explains to him that the Fire Rain Thundering Sword is a sword technique that quickly twists the body around to help take on several moves. Cheon mentions that the moves are not something he can actually use in a real battle. However, Cheon has noticed that Eunseol is trying to use all the techniques in real life, as if he is trying to end someone's life. Eunseol is confused because he believes that one learns sword techniques to be able to use them in real life. Cheon admits that killing intent is needed in the demonic arts, but at the same time, when aiming for a higher realm, the Fire Rain sword abandons the killing aspect. Cheon tells Eunseol that he has to get rid of the murderous intent stuck in his head, or else he would end up creating a martial art that would harm him. It finally dawns on Eunseol that Cheon is practically saying the same thing that Jin-gak told him. Cheon confesses that he has also lived with killing intent in the past, which forced him to kill all those who stood in his way. However, this made him lose honor and pride, and his martial prowess came crumbling down. Cheon continues by saying the techniques are meant to kill and might give the illusion that it will take one to a higher realm, but in reality, it is actually an obstacle that stands in the path of swordsmanship. As if talking to his son, Cheon lets Eunseol know that he has to let go of his killing intent. Just as he hears this, Eunseol remembers what his grandfather once told him about those who wield the sword. His grandfather once told him that those who wield a sword have a past stained with despair and nothing but misfortunes, which is why people in the Murim hate to talk about their past. Eunseol then asks Cheon why he is telling him all these things, and Cheon lets him know that he is doing that so he can know that he once lived with killing intent too. Cheon then asks Yoonseol for his name, and when he tells him, it dawns on him that he was the one who survived the second trial that Jin-gak told him about. Cheon then tells Yoonseol that he has a big problem on his hands, and when Yoonseol asks what it is, Cheon lets him know that he lacks the basics of martial arts. Cheon explains to him that those he is competing with have been learning martial arts since they were kids. Cheon says the gap between them would only widen if he began to learn the fire rain sword technique in the advanced chamber. Cheon tells Yoonseol that he has to quickly master the basic martial arts so that he has the fundamental foundation to build upon the fire rain sword. Because of this, Cheon decides that he is going to teach Yoonseol the unrivaled lightning and thunder technique that he created himself. However, before they begin, he lets Yoonseol know that he has destroyed all the nerve endings in his fingers because he failed to master the said technique. This shows just how dangerous the technique is, and if things go wrong, Yoonseol might actually lose control over his arms instead. If this happens, he won't be able to move to the advanced chamber, but instead become a cripple. With the warning set out, Cheon asks Yoonseol if he still wants to go ahead with the training. Without hesitation, Yoonseol agrees to this because he doesn't care about losing some damn arms, since he is willing to sacrifice his soul as long as he gets his revenge. A month after this, Yoonseol was able to learn the unrivaled lightning and thunder techniques before finally getting the chance to leave the intermediate chamber. Even though Cheon told Yoonseol that he was pretty quick with it, Yoonseol still thinks he took too long to learn the techniques. Since he has learned the said techniques, it is finally time for him to proceed to the advanced level. The moment he opens the door to the advanced chamber, he has everyone staring at him, and Yoonseol senses a different ferocity from the trainees, which is understandable since they have seen what he can do. Yoonseol can't believe that people look down on the job of being an undertaker, while killing someone is regarded in high esteem. The instructor urges Yoonseol to step in and take his seat because he is about to begin the lesson. Because they have a new trainee among them, the instructor reveals that he is going to explain the central reading of the Rain Sword as well as the 7 teachings. He starts by telling them that they must know how to balance power within every part of their body so that they can have an unshakable stance. After a minute of reading the note in front of him, Yoonseol realizes that he wouldn't have understood shit if he didn't learn the advanced martial arts from the intermediate chamber. After the instructor is done with the day's verbal teachings, he tells Yoonseol to follow him. The instructor then takes Yoonseol to the garden at the back of the chamber. He mentions that there are situations where one can defeat an armed enemy without a sword. In this situation, he says the said person no longer needs the sword to form sword arts. The instructor then whips out a plant branch and points it directly at Yoonseol before asking him an important question. He asks him how he is going to respond if he is suddenly attacked and he has no sword in his hands. The instructor reveals that while he was busy in the intermediate chamber, his mates have learned the Shining Mystique, which is the first form of the Fire Rain Sword, which is why they are currently discussing the theory. The instructor lets Yoonseol know that he has no hope of learning anything from him if he can't understand what he is currently asking him. Since his training career depends on it, the instructor urges Yoonseol to answer carefully. Yoonseol then takes a deep breath before replying that if he is lacking a sword, he will simply use his opponent's sword. Without wasting time, he tries to grab the plant branch from the instructor, but before his hand can even reach one of the leaves, the instructor vanishes and appears behind him. The instructor scolds Yoonseol, telling him that his answer is too hasty. Yoonseol, on the other hand, is not concerned with what the instructor just said because he is busy wondering when the instructor got behind him. Yoonseol tries going after the instructor again, but the result remains the same. Yoonseol soon finds himself getting frustrated because he can't predict where the instructor will move to. Yoonseol wasn't expecting to easily catch him, but at the same time, he couldn't believe that he couldn't even follow his movements at all. Yoonseol is now worried because he knows that he has no chance in the advanced chamber if he fails to impress the instructor right there and then. Yoonseol then comes to the conclusion of using the wild beast path to its full potential, even if it is just once. With his mind set on this, he jumps toward the plant branch, but just as he is about to touch it, he is sent flying backwards by the instructor. Yoonseol crashes into the ground, looking totally disappointed, but before he can start wallowing in his failure, the instructor dashes toward him and pats him on the shoulder. The instructor laughs out loud before telling him that he has passed the test. Yoonseol is shocked when he hears this because he couldn't even touch the old man, which leaves him confused about how he actually passed the test. The instructor ignores his question and tells him that he is going to learn the Shining Mystique technique starting the next day. He urges him to come early and even earlier than his mates. Yoonseol is pleased to hear this, and he thanks the instructor for his grace before finally taking his leave. As he walks away, the instructor stares at the plant branch in his hand, and a bunch of the leaves fall off. Unknown to Yoonseol, he was actually able to reach the leaves, but the instructor was wise enough to send him flying to make it seem like he failed. The instructor is extremely impressed, and he admits that he is expecting great things from Yoonseol. Later on, Unseol is walking through the woods when he starts thinking of circulating his qi instead of resting, since a fight might as well break out anytime. Suddenly, he notices multiple presences behind him, and thanks to his wild senses, he is able to figure out how many are out there. 5 dudes soon appear behind, and they all look pissed. They tell Unseol that he has been acting pompously since the intermediate chamber, and they are there to teach him a good lesson. The 5 boast about how they are called the 5 peak swords because they are geniuses, and they are there to kill him. Instead of engaging in baseless arguments with the 5, Unseol leaves his sharp senses turned on, and with this, he is able to figure out that there is one more person lurking in the shadows. Just as the 5 are about to make their move, a scary dude appears behind and knocks out the ringleader. He crashes to the ground from just a strike, and this sends fear down the spines of the others. They turn around to see the attacker, who turns out to be a strong trainee known as Seo Jinha. Jinha ignores the other 4 and turns to Unseol, telling him that they need to talk. The 4 manage to get his attention by asking him what he is doing there, and Seo Jinha tells them to piss off because he has no business with them. The 4 pick up their last dude and they dash out of there while promising to get back at Unseol. Without a doubt, Unseol could clearly see that Jinha is quite strong. Once Jinha confirms that the 4 are gone, he turns to Unseol to ask him a seemingly important question. He points his sword at him and asks him who he is, and the question leaves Unseol confused. Earlier that day in class, the instructor had called Unseol out to try out his technique. Unseol grabbed his sword and took in a deep breath before he started swinging his sword with precision. After swinging for a couple of minutes, he finally stops, and the aftermath of his move is clear cuts in the ground. Even the instructor is impressed because Unseol has somewhat embedded the technique with killing intent. After he is done showcasing his prowess, the instructor calls the next trainee, who turns out to be Seo Jinha. As he steps onto the stage, he walks past Unseol, and he looks absolutely menacing. When it is time for Jinha to show off the first technique of the Fire Rain Sword, he changes it and displays a technique that is a perfect counter to what Unseol just displayed. Unseol had seen this as a clear warning. Now that he is standing face to face with Jinha, Unseol asks him what he meant by who he is. Jinha screams at Unseol, believing that he is only playing dumb to the question. Jinha reveals that he is well aware that not everyone is there on the island because they want to become one of the 10 Demon Masters. The moment Unseol hears this, reality starts to dawn on him. He realizes that the opportunity to learn the 10 demonic arts is quite amazing, but everything was rushed and appeared to be badly executed. He then figures out that the opportunity is serving 2 purposes, and one of them is a trap laid out to catch something. With a calm and genuine voice, Unseol asks Jinha if there is a spy on the island. With the way he asked the question, Jinha could see that Unseol wasn't lying. Jinha then sheathes his sword, saying Unseol is not the person he is looking for. Before leaving, Jinha tells Unseol to stop acting out of line, because if he continues getting on his nerves, he might just kill him. After Jinha leaves, Unseol realizes that there is a lot more going on beneath the surface than he thought. Unseol figures out that it is normal for him to have missed some things, because he has been solely focused on training. Unseol decides to push any thoughts of distraction out of his mind because no matter who it is, he will end up fighting them in the end. Not long after this, the instructor tells the trainees that they have come to the end of their training. After giving them a farewell speech that also counts as a motivational speech, he wishes them luck on their adventure in the Murim. Suddenly, the bell goes off. And while the trainees are wondering what is happening, the instructor tells them to head to the Stone Mountain, which is located in the center of the island. Moments later, the trainees are gathered at the Stone Mountain where the head instructor is present. The moment he realizes that everyone is present and accounted for, the head instructor tells the trainees that it is finally time for them to begin the 3rd trial. The majority of the trainees are confused when they hear the head instructor talk about the 3rd trial because they were all expecting him to say the 2nd trial. The only person who actually knows the real deal is Unseol. Jin-gak then informs the trainees that all of the living quarters will be closed very soon, and they won't be able to return to the chambers until they have picked the 10 Demon Masters. He urges them to grab whatever it is that they need inside the caves before they are closed. One of the trainees then asks how the 10 Demon Masters would be selected, and the head instructor expresses his disappointment that they have been on the island for quite some time and they still haven't realized the game at hand. The head instructor then lays it out plain, telling the trainees that they are expected to kill each other. Hyuk says they are to kill each other until there are only 10 of them left. Hyuk says whatever method they employ is up to them. They are even free to run or hide, but he lets them know that there is a downside to this. Apparently, as time passes, they are going to restrict the areas where the trainees can stay, and those caught in the restricted areas will be killed by the killer demons standing behind him. The killer demons are a bunch of scary dudes in capes, and just the mere sight of them will cause one to pee their pants. Even Unseol starts sweating because he can sense the killing intent from the killer demons from where he is standing. which is a clear indication that they are incredible martial artists. Just then, one of the trainees asks Hyuk if they are allowed to attack the killer demons. Hyuk laughs out loudly when he hears this and expresses how impressed he is that there are candidates who are looking higher than the others. Hyuk then tells them that they are free to fight the killer demons and are even free to kill them. He reveals that any of the candidates who is able to eliminate a killer demon will immediately become one of the 10 demon masters, thus spicing up the entire game. The moment he says this, it dawns on the trainees that eliminating a killer demon appears to be even more difficult than taking on a bunch of trainees. Hyuk then reminds the trainees that they are free to team up or even ambush one another, as there is no method that is frowned upon as long as it helps them become one of the 10 demon masters. After they are dismissed and they get everything they need from the caves, the trainees make their moves. Yoon-seol wastes no time distancing himself from the lots because he is quite aware that he already drew attention to himself in the course of their training. He figures out that he is going to get jumped, just like the so-called Peak 5 wanted to jump him in the forest. He knows that his priority is to get to a safe place, and his best pick is the Wandering Pavilion. Upon reaching there, he notices that the ground feels quite different from what he remembered. He goes down on his knees to feel the changes in the ground, and while doing this, he senses someone coming in his direction. Just then, a dude being chased down by some other trainees appears from the bushes, urging Yoon-seol to help him because they are trying to kill him. Yoon-seol grabs his sword, ready to strike in case it is a setup. The dude assures Yoon-seol that he is going to repay him if he helps him escape from the dudes chasing him down. Yoon-seol assesses the situation and realizes that the dude might actually be telling the truth because the wounds on his body appear to be real. Yoon-seol can sense the 3 people who are chasing him, and he wonders if they are a team or not. Even though Yoon-seol is not interested in whatever they have going on, he can't risk exposing himself because of the dude that they are chasing. Realizing that he has no choice, Yoon-seol is forced to hide himself and the dude in one of the hidden underground pouches located around the pavilion. The trio chasing the dude soon shows up, but they find no one, leaving them totally confused. They walk around the pavilion trying to find their target, but unknown to them, he is right below them. After searching the area and realizing that their target is not there, the trio has no choice but to leave to continue their search. Once Yoon-seol confirms that the assailants are going, he and his conditional partner finally emerge from their hiding place. The dude is grateful that he survived the whole thing, and he thanks Yoon-seol for his help. While he is busy thanking Yoon-seol for his help, Yoon-seol is busy assessing the situation. Yoon-seol figures out that Sa-woo must have prepared a new set of holes for him to help him hide. While he was hiding, he could sense the wild beast path sensations expanding, going farther than normal. He could basically sense everything inside the dirt just as if he was seeing it. He realizes that Sa-woo must have wanted to teach him the path that uses vibration. His conditional partner finally introduces himself as Gyum Chil-young, and he is from the Blood Sect. Gyum asks to know Yoon-seol's name, but he just ignores him. Yoon-seol is not ready to sit down, and he starts heading to his next location. Gyum urges him to stop, and he asks him if he can join him just to be safer. Gyum says he sees Yoon-seol as a trustworthy person since he helped him escape earlier. Yoon-seol remains silent, and Gyum decides to take his silence as a yes. With excitement written all over him, he runs after Yoon-seol like he is a lost puppy, ultimately becoming his partner. After walking for a couple of minutes, Yoon-seol puts his hand on the ground to feel the earth's vibrations. With the help of this, he is able to figure out that there is a fight going on ahead, and he suggests that they take a different route to avoid the battle. Gum is blown away when he sees what Yoon-seol can do, and he urges him to teach him how to do it, but our guy just ignores him and continues walking. Suddenly, Yoon-seol hears one of the fighters talking about how determined he is to avenge his fallen comrades. The moment Yoon-seol hears this, it sends a familiar feeling down his entire body. He realizes that the guy is also pursuing the feeling of revenge just as he is. Gyum notices the sudden change in Yoon-seol, and he asks him what is happening. But before he can talk further, Yoon-seol lets him know that they are taking a detour. It turns out that Yoon-seol doesn't want to avoid the fight again, but wants to be actively involved in it. As they approach the battle area, a trainee is perfectly hidden on a tree branch, and the moment he notices Yoon-seol, he makes his move. However, Yoon-seol easily blocks his attack, shocking the dude, who thought he had the upper hand. He frantically asks Yoon-seol how he was able to stop the forbidden ultimate concealment technique when he is not an assassin. Yoon-seol ignores his question and replies with a fatal slash cut to slice him in two. Yoon-seol admits that the assassin technique would have been a pain in the ass if he hadn't learned the wild beast path. Since the fight is still ongoing, Yoon-seol thinks of helping the trapped dude get rid of the assassins so he can tell him how it feels to accomplish revenge. Just as they are about to finish him off, Yoon-seol appears out of nowhere and attacks them. The sudden attack shocks them, giving Yoon-seol the edge as he delivers his devastating slashes. However, one of the assassins appears right behind Yoon-seol and almost cuts his head off, but Yoon-seol dodges the strike. Before he knows it, Yoon-seol finds himself surrounded, but they still pose no threat to his ferocity. He is able to cut them down, leaving just one dude. While he is preparing to go up against the dude, the trapped guy thirsting for vengeance emerges from behind to kill the last assassin. Having cut down the last assassin, he lets off a huge smile that he was able to accomplish his vengeance. Suddenly, he crashes to the ground before Yoon-sul even gets to ask him anything. Gyum emerges from the bush where he is hiding, asking if the fight is over. Yoon-sul ignores him and bows beside the dude to check him out. This is when Gyum finally shows his true colors as he tries to stab Yoon-sul from behind. However, Yoon-sul is not one to be easily fooled, as he blocks the attack before it even reaches him. Gyum is stunned when Yoon-sul blocks the attack, as he wasn't expecting it. Yoon-sul pushes him backwards, while blaming him for depriving him of his chance to ask the burning question in his mind. Gyum is not concerned about whatever question Yoon-sul has, but he is more concerned about how Yoon-sul was able to figure out that he was going to betray him. Eun-sul then reveals that he already knew from the very start. While they were in the underground shelter, Eun-sul had seen that Gyum was hiding a bunch of hidden weapons under his clothing. In addition, he was not able to move properly because his body was stiff, thanks to the weapons on his body. Eun-sul confesses that he only kept Gyum around because of curiosity. He wanted to know if the art of deceit would help him in the future. Gyum hears this and loses his mind, believing that Yoon-sul is spewing nonsense because he considers his acting the perfect one. He throws his weapons at Yoon-sul, but he blocks everything pretty easily, making life harder for Gyum. Fear starts creeping through his body with the realization that Eun-sul might actually be able to predict his moves. Before he knows it, Eun-sul's speed gives him the edge, and he reaches Gyum in no time, delivering a cut to his shoulder. Eun-sul then tells Gyum that he might have the best hidden weapons, but they are basically useless if he can't hide them very well. Refusing to give up, Gyum makes one last-ditch attempt in trying to finish Eun-sul off with everything he has. Gyum dashes toward Eun-sul, but Eun-sul shows him how superior he is by easily moving through him and cutting him down. After Gyum is dead, Eun-sul admits that the fight was tough on him, and he would have run into problems if he didn't know about the hidden weapons. He turns around to look at Gyum's face, and it looks just like the regular death stare that most dying people have. On the other hand, the revenge dude has a calm and accomplished death face, and Eun-sul wonders if he would have the same kind of face when he finally gets his revenge. Before leaving the scene, Yoon-sul picks up the guy's sword, which now gives him the chance to wield two swords. Meanwhile, there is an unknown entity hiding in the bushes, and they are watching Eun-sul's every move. They have seen the way he fights and how dangerous he is. The unknown fellow admits that Eun-sul is talented, but they believe he still has to upgrade his skills or else he is not going to survive on the island. The following day, Eun-sul finds himself getting chased down by a bunch of trainees who want him gone at all costs. Eun-sul has suffered several cuts to his body, but he keeps running because he can see that the assailants have no intentions of backing down. As he tries to get ahead, he is also trying to think of how to escape his current situation. And all the while, the head instructor and Jin-gak are watching from a mountain peak. The head instructor asks for updates, and Jin-gak tells him that out of the 86 trainees, there are 41 still alive. The head instructor is pleased that there are still 41 trainees left even after 3 days, and he concludes that the rest are skilled. He then decides that it is time to test their skills. Meanwhile, Eun-sul ties his daggers together, and just as his assailants are about to close down, he throws it backwards to knock one of them back and gives himself a fighting chance again. Eun-sul quickly figures out that he has no chance whatsoever if he continues fighting on the open field. It is at this moment that he decides to change the terrain of the fight to where he's going to have a bit of a chance. Eun-sul runs straight for the Fire Rain sect building, but unknown to him, the head instructor has decided that the location is the next place he wants to restrict. Eun-sul safely makes it into the building, and he leaves a trail of blood for his assailants to follow. They track him to a tight space and believe that they have cornered him until Eun-sul appears behind them. He almost relieves the closest guy of his head, but he manages to block it, while alerting his friends that Eun-sul is behind them. The dude boastfully tells Eun-sul that they are not fools and would not fall for such cheap tricks. A fierce battle ensues between the two, but Eun-sul is able to read his sword paths, giving him the chance to easily dodge the enemy's attacks. The moment he dodges the guy's attack, Eun-sul gets the golden chance to deliver a counterattack, and he takes his chance. He swings his sword so hard that it slices his opponent's head off his neck. The rest of the crew gets really mad and tries to attack Eun-sul all at once, but it soon dawns on them that the tight space is limiting their attack capabilities. Eun-sul, on the other hand, has no problem whatsoever as he thrives very well in such tight positions. Eun-sul gets the upper hand, making life hard for his assailants. After assessing the situation, Eun-sul realizes that he has a chance of taking them all down if he engages them one-on-one. Realizing that Eun-sul is just going to pick them off one by one if they allow him, one of the assailants frantically throws his whip weapon, forcing it to bounce off the wall. The whip almost catches Eun-sul, but he manages to jump out of the line of fire at the last minute. Realizing that they have chased Yunseol out of the tight space, the rest of the assailants try to run out, but they run into a brick wall who happens to be the team leader. He looks absolutely furious because the crew is trying to run away from a fight. The crew tries to defend their claims, saying they are not running but trying to reposition themselves. The captain ignores their excuses, and with just one swing from his weapon, he cuts their heads off, leaving blood splattering everywhere. He boastfully talks about how trashy his crew was, which was why he didn't want to roll with them in the first place. Now that the flies have been taken care of, Yunseol finds himself facing off against the captain of the team. He admits that Yunseol is skilled and then introduces himself as Wu Muncheong. He asks Yunseol what his name is, but Yunseol is more concerned about Wu's status. He wants to know if he is the leader of the team, and this pisses Wu off. He concludes that there is no need to exchange names since Yunseol is about to die at his hands. Wu swings his whip weapon at Yunseol to grab his sword, and before Yunseol can react, his weapon shatters right in his hand. Wu starts making fun of Yunseol, saying the Fire Rain sect only taught him one defense technique. This is when it finally dawns on Yunseol that the dude knows everything about his Shining Mystique technique. But the question of how he knows remains. Yunseol wonders if Wu has some sort of information network that he doesn't know about. Wu notices that Yunseol is carried away with his thoughts, and he comes after him. Yunseol barely dodges Wu's attack, but watches as Wu destroys everything his weapon touches. Yunseol figures out that fighting Wu in an enclosed space is basically useless, so he decides to run to the main hall. Yunseol arms himself with his second sword and then prepares to engage Wu, but another swing from Wu pushes him backwards. Wu emerges from the dark space, talking about how disappointed he is that Yunseol is not giving him enough fight. He swings his whip at Yunseol, and before he knows it, he finds himself trapped by the whip. Wu makes fun of Yunseol, telling him that it is almost over for him. Yunseol realizes that he can actually block Wu's attacks using Shining Mystique, but the problem is that he doesn't have the power to project enough force to stop it. This is when it dawns on him that a totally different technique is needed, which is a destructive force strong enough to cut through steel. The moment the whip surrounds Yunseol, Wu believes that he has finished the job, but he suddenly realizes that Yunseol is trying to cook up something. Even with this, he is not worried, since he believes that Yunseol is trying to use the Shining Mystique. His relaxed face turns into a horrified face when Yunseol bursts through the trapped space with a powerful force, accompanied by a golden aura. It turns out that he just used the unrivaled lightning and thunder technique that Xian taught him. Before Wu can react, Yunseol has reached him, thanks to the force he is coming with. In the blink of an eye, Yunseol moves through him, delivering a fatal cut through his body, which he only felt after Yunseol was done. All at once, his bodily functions cease to exist, and Wu crashes to the ground dead. After Wu is dead, Yunseol finally feels the effect of the skill he just used, causing him to cough up blood. Even though the skill is quite powerful and dependent, Yunseol realizes that he can't use it freely because it is way too advanced for his level. Nonetheless, he is glad that he won the fight even though it might have taken up his time. He figures out that the restricted regions will soon change, and he needs to move quickly. Suddenly, he senses an ominous aura behind him, and when he turns around, he sees a killer demon staring down at him with all monstrosity. Fear creeps through Yunseol's body as he doesn't want to believe what his eyes are seeing. It starts to dawn on him that the restricted zones must have changed while he was busy fighting the group he just defeated. However, he starts wondering if he has a chance of leaving without a fight, since he didn't end up in the restricted zone because he was running away from combat. He slightly moves his foot while watching the killer demon, and when he doesn't react, Yunseol believes that he is in the clear. He assumes that the killer demon is giving him a pass, and he quickly makes use of it. He runs past the killer demon, but just as he is about to move past him, his wild beast senses kick in, and he sees his head flying off his body. Yunseol barely changes his trajectory to avoid getting beheaded. He almost pees his pants when he realizes that he couldn't even sense when the killer demon moved, and if not for his wild beast senses, he would have been dead meat. Yunseol finally comes to the conclusion that he can't be fooled by the killer demon's calm face because the moment he makes a move, he is going to attack him. Yunseol then remembers what Sa Wu told him about carnivores and herbivores. He had learned that predators have a hard time catching their prey whenever it is moving in the zigzag position. However, the carnivore still comes out on top, and this is because the prey's movement gets predictable at some point, giving the predator the chance to intercept and kill their prey. Since predictability is the issue, Yunseol lets off a loud scream before deciding to start moving in the most weird way to make sure his movements can't be predicted. Yunseol kicks his plan into motion, and his first move is able to evade the killer demon, impressing the dude. Yunseol starts with a predictable zigzag movement, and the moment the killer demon catches on to this, Yunseol starts dodging his attacks with the wild beast path. Just as he is about to make his final move, he realizes that the killer demon has gotten to him, and he has his sword to his neck. Sweat ran down his face with the realization that he was too late. However, He is shocked when the killer demon suddenly stops instead of executing him on the spot. Eunseol looks around and realizes that he has crossed the restricted area already. Eunseol takes a moment to think about what just happened and realizes that he couldn't even make a single opening, though he put his all into it. Eunseol turns around to leave and finally understands what it means to be a martial artist. It dawned on him that he was just a frog in a well and he stood absolutely no chance. After making it to a safe distance, Eunseol takes a moment to think about the whole situation again, and he realizes that the killer demon actually has skills that can match his grandfather's killer. Eunseol figures out that he has to be able to surpass the skills of a killer demon if he wants to have a chance. Suddenly, he hears a voice behind him, telling him that he has been looking for him. He turns around to see a dude sitting on a rock and staring at him, and talking about the wild beast path that Eunseol learned. Eunseol hears this, and figures out that a lot of info has been passed around about him. The dude initially plans to introduce himself, but changes his mind, saying Eunseol is about to die, so he has no reason to know his name. The dude charges toward Eunseol, but Eunseol remains calm as he easily moves to dodge the dude's attack. The dude is impressed that Eunseol actually dodged his attack with his beast-like senses. The dude admits that Eunseol is on the path to becoming one of the demon masters in the future, which is why he absolutely has to kill him. The dude changes his attack trajectory, and with the way he is speaking, something important finally crosses Eunseol's mind. However, he quickly filters his mind of all distracting thoughts before he gets himself killed. He blocks the dude's attack, but the reverberation from the sword sends a peculiar sensation through Eunseol's body. After a few more moves, Eunseol finally confirms his suspicion. He remembers he and his grandfather once attended to a corpse, and his grandfather tells him that the dude died at the hands of the 5 tiger-severing blades of the Hebei Feng clan. His grandfather knew this because there wasn't an external wound on the dude, but all of his bones were shattered. Eunseol's grandfather explains that the 5 tiger-severing blades specialize in chi flowing into the opponent whenever their weapons touch each other. Remembering the words of his grandfather, Eunseol speaks out to let the dude know that he is aware that he is currently using the 5 tiger-severing blades technique that is peculiar to the Hebei Feng clan. The dude is shocked when he hears this, and he starts questioning Eunseol about how he knows this. Apparently, one of the characteristics of the fighting form is the absorption technique, which is one of the basic techniques that uses Qi. It is just like a vortex that pulls everything into it, thus using this to mess with their opponent's weapon. While the opponent's weapon is twisted, they use the opportunity to fully take them down. Back then, Eunseol was blown away by how his grandfather explained everything, and he asked his grandfather if the Hebei Feng clan was the most powerful martial arts sect. His grandfather explained that the technique might be dangerous, but at the same time, it is bound to affect them too, since they are going to get close to their opponent. Remembering this, Eunseol decides that he is going to use the technique against the opponent. Eunseol dashes toward the Feng dude, and the guy finally prepares to engage Eunseol, using the clan's way. Feng talks about how he plans to uproot all of the demon seedlings before they get the chance to become demon masters. Just as Eunseol is about to reach him, he does something by plunging his sword into the ground. Feng thinks Eunseol must be crazy, but he soon realizes that he is on the wrong side when Eunseol dodges his attack and appears beside him. Eunseol kicks him right in the stomach, causing him pain, while also pushing back. Eunseol then returns to pick up his sword while smiling because his plan is clearly working. However, Eunseol is not completely relying on what he just did because he could clearly see that it dealt little damage. He is not entirely worried since his opponent has been training for a long time, and he doesn't expect to just take him down with cheap tricks. However, he is now glad that he knows how to counter him. While remembering the words of the advanced chamber instructor, the man told him to let the opponent attack first before making his move in a split second. Feng soon makes his move, and instead of panicking and acting recklessly, Eunseol decides to go with the flow of the attack with the hope of changing the flow at the last second. Eunseol does exactly this and barely misses Feng's head. Feng's life flashes before his very eyes, and this is when he realizes that Eunseol is using his own technique to his advantage. Feng doesn't want to believe that this is possible because the energy-absorbing technique that he is using is strong enough to even pull a boulder from a long distance. Apparently, the technique is so strong that even expert swordsmen find it difficult to counter, which is why Feng doesn't want to believe that someone as young as Eunseol has what it takes to counter him. Feng then tries another attack, and this time around, he makes the absorption stronger, but unknown to him, he is just going to make Eunseol's sword faster. Eunseol gets the edge, and just as he is about to cut Feng, Feng dodges the strike because he was already expecting it. He catches Eunseol by surprise since he pulled back from using the energy absorption technique. He boastfully tells Eunseol that he doesn't need to use the energy absorption technique to kill someone like him. Feng dashes toward Eunseol while totally ignoring his absorption technique, but this is what Eunseol has been waiting for. The moment Feng gets closer to him, Eunseol makes use of the Fire Rain Sword First technique, shining Mystique to cut Feng down. Just like Eunseol's previous opponents, Feng is left in shock at the type of technique that Unseol just displayed in front of him. It turns out that Unseol changed the shining mystique from a defensive technique to an attacking one, and to do this, he had to risk having the other moves go against him. Even Feng is forced to admit that Unseol is brilliant for having changed the way the attack works. Unseol starts working away, and Feng is surprised that Unseol is letting him live. Unseol tells Feng that he is not part of his revenge, which is why he has no reason to kill him. Feng is relieved to hear this, and he suggests that they never meet each other again. Just as Unseol leaves, a strange figure appears behind Feng, who turns out to be a killer demon. Feng asks the demon killer if he is there to take him out, and the demon killer lets him know that he was useful for the Orthodox sect as long as he could. Feng is surprised that the demon killer knows he is from the Orthodox sect, and the demon killer scoffs, telling Feng that he is gravely underestimating the demon palace. With this, the demon killer raises his sword and executes Feng. Meanwhile, Seo Jinha is going up against a bunch of trainees who are from the hellish sect. While fighting them, they have managed to poison him, and because of this, he has lost 95% of his fighting spirit. His enemies let him know that he is just a dead man, walking unless he is able to obtain the antidote from them, which they obviously would not give him. Seo Jinha finally realizes that being alone might not have been the best option because the group he is going up against is too organized. Instead of giving up, Seo Jinha grabs his sword with his left hand, ready to defend himself. One of the assailants makes fun of Jinha, admitting that he might be strong and talented, but there is no way he is going to quickly adapt to using his left hand since he is a right-handed warrior. They suggest that he give up as they dash toward him with the intention of finishing him off. Jinha tries to stand his ground, but to make things work, he gets hit with another poison needle again. With this, Jinha knows he is going to die in 10 minutes if he doesn't get himself the antidote to the poison. Realizing that there is no need to fight again, Jinha finally lets down his sword, waiting to be butchered by the incoming assailants. Suddenly, one of them drops dead before they can reach Jinha, and this is when they realize that there is someone else in the area. They are still trying to understand the situation when Unseol appears behind them, looking all menacing and dangerous. Unseol's swift and surprise attack helps him take down the assailants with precision. In no time, Unseol is the only one standing amidst the number of corpses lying around the field. Fear sets in when Seo Jinha notices Unseol walking toward him, and he tries to convince him to let him live because he is not a threat to him. Unseol just ignores him and walks over to one of the bodies on the ground to search it. It turns out that Unseol is concerned about the antidote, and the moment he sees it, he is relieved because he knows that it would help him when fighting against the trainees from the hellish blood castle. Just as he is about to leave, Seo Jinha stops him, telling him that he has been poisoned, and he has less than 10 minutes to use the antidote. Unseol turns around, and with a cold voice, he lets him know that his aim is to kill everyone, and Seo Jinha is not exempt. Unseol lets him know that the only reason he is not cutting him down is that he is a dead man already. Seo Jinha realizes that Unseol is actually right because, in the end, he is just a competitor who needs to get out of the way. Out of desperation, Jinha tells Unseol that he is ready to work with him if he can give him the antidote. Unseol then asks him why he should help him out, and in his defense, Jinha reminds Unseol that there are about 20 trainees left. He explains that these trainees are all in groups, and no matter how strong Unseol is, he has no chance against them all by himself. Jinha promises to tell Unseol the weaknesses of the remaining group if he helps him. In addition, Jinha promises Unseol that he is never going to betray him if he saves his life. After taking a moment to think about it, Unseol comes to the conclusion that Seo Jinha is not the type to trick people or betray someone. Jinha also assures Unseol that he is going to work with him until the very end, while reiterating the fact that he is not going to betray him. Unseol finally agrees to help, and he throws the antidote canister to Jinha so he can help himself. Jinha wastes no time pouring the powder on the affected part, and while he is doing this, the bell for another restricted area comes on. The moment Unseol hears this, he tells Jinha that they need to leave immediately. Jinha is surprised because they are still in the safe zone, but Unseol screams at him to use his head. He reminds him that most of the battle area has been restricted already, and since another restriction just happened and they are in the safe zone, this can only mean one thing. This basically means that the rest of the group will soon converge on their position. Before he can even finish saying this, the other groups show up, surrounding Jinha and Unseol. Without a doubt, Unseol realizes that they are late already, and while assessing the group that just arrived, he notices that there is a certain dude among them who appears to be different from the rest. The dude has a red scarf tied around his hair, and he has a cold demeanor about him. Since the group is a bunch of different factions, one of them wastes no time suggesting that they kill Unseol and Jinha first before deciding on what to do with each other. It turns out that everyone in the group knows about Jinha and Unseol and the type of skills that they wield. Realizing that they are in a very tight spot, Jinha reaches for the antidote bottle that Unseol gave him earlier. In an act of ingenuity, he throws the powder at the group, claiming that it is poison from the hellish blood castle. The powder leaves a purple dust that covers the entire area and leaves the group members covering their mouths in fear. While the group is trying to deal with what they think is poison, Yoonseol and Jinha make a run for it. Suddenly, one of the group members catches on to the fact that they have been tricked, and he alerts the rest of the group, telling them that the powder is not poison. Jinha, on the other hand, is glad that the powder actually created what appears to be a smokescreen. Meanwhile, Yoonseol is already thinking of the next thing to do, and he figures out that a large area is not going to work out for them. He thinks of getting a cave where they will be best suited to fight, and just as if they are working in sync, Jinha can see what he is thinking. Yoonseol then tells Jinha to follow him because he knows a cave that they can use. Apparently, he is talking about his former living quarters, which provide the best place for them to fight in. Jinha is ultimately impressed when he realizes that Yoonseol has it all figured out already. Yoonseol and Jinha continue their advance towards the cave area, but everything turns out badly for them when they see a cloud of smoke covering the area, signaling the fact that the cave area has fallen under a restricted section. The killer demons have the entire place surrounded, giving them no room to breach whatsoever. Yoonseol figures out that the higher-ups are watching and intentionally picks the area to be a restricted area just so they can see what would happen. Jinha starts to panic, and he asks Yoonseol what they are supposed to do. Yoonseol lets him know that the killer demons won't attack them as long as they don't cross the fog. Since they have no choice but to fight, Yoonseol believes that having their backs against the demon killers might not be a bad choice. Realizing that they have no choice, the two prepare themselves for the battle of their lives. The group chasing them finally shows up, and they are pissed about the fact that Yoonseol and his partner are stressing them out. Without delaying any further, they rush towards the two, aiming to kill them as fast as possible. Meanwhile, the head instructor is watching from above, and he believes that the battle that is about to ensue will be the deciding battle for the 10 demon masters. Daggers fly towards Yoonseol, but he easily dodges everything before going after the dude who throws the daggers. He cuts down the dude, and while he is doing this, Jinha is also showing the attackers why he is not on their level. Suddenly, a long-range weapon comes flying at Jinha, forcing him to take a step backwards. The intensity of the long-range weapon forces Jinha and Yoonseol to stand back-to-back again, leaving their assailants to surround them. Seeing how the situation has turned out, Yoonseol realizes that he is on the verge of death, and he subtly says he has no regrets, since he has put his all into everything he has done so far. The moment Yoonseol hears this, he realizes that he and Jinha are on a completely different path because if he dies at that moment, he is going to be filled with the regret of not being able to avenge his grandfather. The reality that this might happen hits him really hard, and he loses every sense of fear and immediately locks in. Yoonseol switches positions from being the hunted to the hunter, and the first two who are running towards him have no idea what hit them. He cuts them down so fast that he is already onto his next target before Jinha even realizes that Yoonseol is no longer behind him. Yoonseol's technique changes as he slashes his opponents like tissue. The other trainees start panicking because they have never seen the type of technique that Yoonseol is wielding. Realizing how dangerous Yoonseol is, the target immediately shifts to him. They focus all of their attention on him, but at this point, all of Yoonseol's senses are on overdrive, especially his wild beast senses. He remembers every move Sawu did, and in that moment, he starts moving erratically. All the trainees can see are bodies flying left and right, while they can't seem to track Yoonseol's movements. Even the head instructor is shocked by what he is staring at, as he cannot believe that a trainee is moving just like a pro. Yoonseol is dealing blows left and right until an unexpected punch comes from nowhere, and Yoonseol only notices it at the last minute. He is able to block the punch with his sword, but failure to prepare ahead causes the punch to shatter his sword before throwing him into the distance. Jinha freaks out when he sees where Yoonseol landed, and he screams at him to stand up. Yoonseol is a bit disoriented from the punch, and by the time he comes back to his senses, he finds himself in the fog. His mouth opens in shock and dismay, and by the time he looks up, he sees a killer demon staring down at him, ready to decapitate him. To everyone's shock, the head instructor screams out an order at the last minute. The killer demon is about to grab Yoonseol when Sawu appears behind him and holds a sword to his neck to let him know that Yoonseol is spared. Yoonseol stares into his master's eyes, and this is the last thing he sees before finally passing out. The head instructor screams at the top of his voice, demanding that they bring out the head physician to prevent Yoonseol from dying. Jin-gak tries telling the head instructor that it is wrong for him to suddenly pause the trial, but the head instructor assures Jin-gak that he is going to take full responsibility. Deep down, the head instructor is rejoicing that he has finally found the kind of jewel that he has been looking for. The head instructor is confident that Yoonseol will go ahead to become one of the 10 demon masters. Later on, the head instructor was asked by one of the elders, Hua Wimyong, why he disrupted the plan, which was to initially select 10 demon masters and 2 geniuses who would serve as their ears and ears. Apparently their plan was to select 12 trainees, but Onseol ended the trial with 14 trainees even when he knew he was going to be punished for it. The head instructor lets Hua know that he is fully prepared for whatever consequence that comes with his decision. Hua is worried about how the emissaries from the 10 demonic sects will take the news, but the head instructor assures Hua, telling him that the 10 executives would also see what he saw in Yunseol. Sometime later, Yunseol wakes up in a strange room with the smell of medicine everywhere. He immediately figures out that he is in the room where his wounds were treated. He assesses his body and realizes that his wounds are perfectly healed, and this includes all of his internal injuries. He is totally impressed by this because he wasn't expecting the physician from the Demon Palace to be so impressive. Once he gathers his strength, he gets on his feet and makes his way to the hallway where he meets an attendant who asks him to come along. He leads Onseol to the main hall, and Yunseol is totally blown away by the incredible setting of the building. He asks the dude where they are, and he informs him that they are currently in the center of Hell Island. It dawns on Yunseol that he hasn't seen the building before because it was in the restricted area. Once Onseol makes himself comfortable, the attendant asks him if he would like to order anything, and Yunseol asks for 2 bowls of noodles. Moments later, the noodles arrived, and the reason he asked for noodles was that he had always enjoyed noodles with his grandfather. Just as he is about to start eating, Jinha shows up, teasing him about the 2 bowls of noodles in his presence. Not ready to be friends, Yunseol asks Jinha what he wants, and Jinha takes a moment before thanking Yunseol for saving his life. So Jinha admits that he would have died if not for Yunseol saving his life. Yunseol doesn't want to take credit for this, but Jinha explains to him that they were supposed to be 12 surviving trainees. However, the head instructor's decision to suddenly save him is why Jinha is also alive. Yunseol is shocked to hear this, and he is even more shocked when he hears that he has been out for 4 days. Onseol thought he was just out for 1 day, and Jinha let him know that he was pretty lucky that the physician known as the Mad Physician was close by. Talking about the Mad Physician, he is considered the best physician, but after failing to cure his lover's illness, he became mentally unstable. Basically, he is considered a miracle worker who can save anyone as long as they are still breathing. Onseol feels honored by the fact that he was saved by the said physician. Without asking, Jinha decides to dig into Onseol's noodles while dispersing more information. He mentions that the killer demons are actually martial masters sent over by the 10 demonic sects. Apparently, the sects will be coming to pick their successors too. Onseol then asks Jinha if he has any idea why he was saved by the head instructor. Jinha replies that he was just about to ask him the same thing because the head instructor was really eager for Onseol to be one of the 10 demon masters. Jinha believes that Onseol knows the head instructor before, or his sect has something to do with it. Yunseol then clears the air, saying he didn't know the head instructor before. When Onseol hears that the head instructor is being heavily punished for what happened, he starts wondering why a man whom he never knew stepped in to save him, and even risked being punished for it. Just then, a loud sound calls everyone's attention to the fact that the executives of the 10 demonic sects have arrived. The trainees immediately gather, and they watch as the aura farming executives enter the room. Without wasting time, the vice master of the necromancer sect, Bulsa, makes his move. He points to a dude named Yang Munho and asks him to join the necromancer sect. Yang is skeptical because he has always trained with a sword and has never held a spear before. Bulsa lets him know that this doesn't matter before he was born with a physique that is suited for the necromancy spear. Bulsa points out that Yang was unable to max out his potential while he was using the sword, and the spear would be the best choice for him. With these words ringing in his head, Yang quickly follows Bulsa. After Bulsa is done, another old man, Jok Yahan, steps up, and he is the vice master of the Hellish Blood Castle. Surprisingly, Jok calls upon Jinha to join the Hellish sect, and this shocks the dude. Jinha can't believe that Jok Yahan is seriously calling on him, who was known as the genius of the sword since he was a kid, to join the Hellish Blood Castle that creates poison artists. Jok explains that the scariest poison in the world is a poisonous heart. Apparently, before the 3rd trial began, Jinha had used a girl from the martial office of the Hellish Castle to kill all the trainees, and after failing, he ended her life to make sure she stays silent forever. Jinha immediately cuts in to defend himself, saying the girl offered first. However, Jok lets Jinha know that he is not trying to blame him whatsoever because he appreciates the fact that Jinha is willing to kill many people to achieve his goals. Jok lets Jinha know that he cannot succeed in the Murim if he thinks that swordsmanship is his path. Jok is able to convince Jinha that his talent lies with the poison and not swordsmanship. After seeing how Onseol handled the sword, even though he just started learning, Jinha is convinced that he might truly not have the talent for swordsmanship. Because of this, he makes up his mind to head to the Hellish Castle, and Jok gladly takes him away. Just then, the strongest swordsman in the demon path, Wee Hyokgun, steps forward to make his pick. Wee is the most respected because he is the strongest, and the fact that he is from the Fire Rain Sword sect. Even Unseol can feel the pressure from Wee, and everyone else is on their toes because they are eager to see who he is going to pick. Wee shocks everyone when he calls on Unseol's name, telling him to follow him. Wee says he has heard a lot about Unseol, and because of this, he is excited to see what Unseol can do. Just as Wei turns around to leave, Unseol does the unthinkable by fearlessly voicing out that he is not interested in joining the Fire Rain Sword sect. Wei is forced to ask again just in case he is going deaf. Wei's rage bursts out as he cannot believe that Unseol just rejected a demon master. The aura from his body immediately sends Unseol to his knees, but Unseol manages to speak out, saying he has the choice to reject offers. Wei then asks him where he plans to go after he rejects his offer, and Unseol calmly says he would like to go to the Wandering Beast Pavilion. This only makes Wei even angrier, since the Wandering Beast Pavilion is considered trash and he believes that Unseol is trying to make fun of the Fire Rain sect. Wei continues to pin Unseol down with his terrifying aura, and Unseol finally realizes why he is regarded as the strongest swordsman in the demon path. Suddenly, Unseol feels a sense of relief, and when he looks up, he sees Sawu standing between him and the immeasurable pressure coming from Wei's body. This only makes Wei even angrier because he can't believe that a mere pavilion master is trying to stand in his way. The aura from Wei increases, causing Sawu a bit of discomfort, and he even reaches for his sword. Everyone watching this starts shitting their pants because they can't believe Sawu is really trying to unsheath his sword in front of the strongest man in the demon path. With a stern voice, Wei tells Sawu not to overthink his boundaries because he is close to Jin Gak. One of the vice masters quickly figures out that the trainees would all die if Wei gets mad and unsheathes his sword. He figures out that it is his job to quickly step in and make sure that the situation is diffused. Just as Wei is about to pull out his sword, the said vice master quickly steps in to push the sword back, while speaking to Wei in the most gentle way that he can. It turns out that the vice master is Dan Xian, and he is from the Wandering Beast sect. He urges Wei to let go of the matter just for his sake, and the rest of the elders present in the room subtly urge Wei to exercise patience. Wei takes a moment before finally making his decision, allowing the Wandering Beast sect to take Unseol under their wings. Sawu quickly tells Unseol that it is time for them to leave before Wei changes his mind again. Deep down, Unseol knows the energy he felt, and he can sense the fact that Wei was going to kill him if he hadn't been stopped. After leaving the demon palace, Sawu commends Unseol, saying he has improved, and Unseol heaps praise on Sawu's teachings. Moments later, they arrive at the Wandering Beast Pavilion, which appears to be a lively village. Unseol is shocked when he sees this because he was expecting a silent and serious environment, but everyone looks bright and happy. Dan notices the shock on Unseol's face, and he tells him that they are unlike the other sects because they prioritize self-sufficiency instead. Unseol notices that he can't see young people of his age in the area, and he questions this. Dan casually reveals that the young disciples they had either run away or died, thanks to their intense training. Dan then looks around, and he spots an old shack. He tells Unseol that he will be staying in the shack, and if there is nothing that needs to be fixed in the shack, he asks him to get tools from the blacksmith, Wangul. After telling Unseol where he needs to be, Dan tells Sawu that it is time for them to leave. Unseol is surprised that Sawu is leaving, and he asks him if he is not staying in the village. Dan then explains that Sawu is just a secret pavilion master who has no right or power to stand up against the sword demon. Because he did that to protect Unseol, he is going to be punished for it. Unseol is shocked to hear this, but Sawu urges him not to worry himself because it is nothing but a light punishment. Sawu livens the mood by slapping Unseol on the back, telling him not to fool around while he is away. After Sawu is gone, Dan tells Unseol that he cannot call himself a disciple of the Wandering Beast Pavilion yet. Dan says Unseol might have become one of the 10 demon masters, but this doesn't mean he is officially a disciple of the Wandering Beast Pavilion. The reason for this is that they don't accept weaklings as disciples of the Beast Pavilion. Unseol then asks Dan what is required to be strong, and Dan casually says yes. Dan reveals that the sect doesn't have any stressful formalities like the other sects. Dan says the sect doesn't enforce a sense of belonging or an oath because all that is needed is to learn martial arts and become stronger. By doing this, he will be acknowledged as a disciple, and Dan lets him know that everyone in the pavilion is his mentor. However, it is still up to the masters to teach Unseol what they know or not. The next day, Unseol starts climbing a very tall rock known as the Iron Peak. Dan had told him the day before to climb the rock because there was someone waiting at the top who was going to teach him the best internal energy cultivation techniques. After struggling so hard and sweating gallons, Unseol finally makes it to the top of the mountain. He is blown away when he sees a man who appears to be a monk waiting for him. The aura from the bald-headed man alone is enough to send him tumbling back, but Unseol maintains his cool. He introduces himself to the man and states his business to him, and the man asks him if he is not satisfied with the cultivation technique he has learned already. Unseol is confused when he hears this, and the man reveals that there is true qi emanating from his body. The man says the qi is so much that it appears Unseol has been gathering it since he was young. Unseol quickly clears the air, saying he has lived as a mortician all his life and has never learned any cultivation technique. The moment the bald-headed Saitama hears this, he reveals that there are only two possibilities for what Unseol just said. It's either that Unseol is a liar or he learned it in his dreams. Desperate to clear himself, Unseol tells the man that he is not lying and he is free to check if he is. The man is curious about this, and he asks Unseol if he is free to destroy all of his true qi, to which Unseol says yes. The bald-headed dude takes a look at Unseol's body and he is shocked when he realizes that his body is brimming with true qi. But it is not circulating, which means he collected true qi into his lower dantian without having an energy technique. The bald-headed man doesn't think this phenomenon is possible, and he immediately grabs Unseol closer, asking him fiercely who taught him how to collect true qi. Unseol is confused by the question, forcing him to ask the bald-headed dude what he meant by this. The dude then asks him if anyone has ever taught him how to calm his mind or breathe in the past. Unseol immediately mentions that his grandfather taught him a breathing technique before, and the man asks him to try it in his presence. Unseol gets into position and starts doing the breathing technique, but the bald-headed dude is blown away when he sees this, because Unseol is doing the technique while standing up. After he has seen enough, he tells Unseol to stop and asks him again if his grandfather was the one who taught him. Unseol confirms this, saying he taught him when he used to play dead with him, claiming that it was the best way to breathe in the coffin. The bald dude then tells Unseol that the technique is not just for breathing, but it is also useful for collecting true qi in the dantian. It is basically a circulation and breathing practice, which is different from the internal energy techniques that would allow one to use the true qi in their body. The bald dude lets Unseol know that there is already 10 years worth of internal energy in his body. The dude then asks Unseol for his grandfather's name, and Unseol reveals that it is Bu Janyang. The moment he says this, the bald dude lets him know that there is only one person in the Murim with the name, and he was once called the strongest swordsman in the Demon Path. He was also the former vice master of the Demon Palace, but Unseol doesn't want to believe this because there is no way someone as influential as him would become an undertaker. The bald dude then mentions another peculiar detail, saying the breathing technique that Janyang taught Unseol is that of a Shaolin sect. This shocks Unseol because this basically means the technique is from the Orthodox sect, leaving the huge question of whether his father was originally a martial master of the Orthodox sect. Fear creeps through Unseol's body because he knows that if the truth gets out, he is going to lose his title as a demon master in the best-case scenario, but would be killed in the worst-case scenario. The bald dude then urges Unseol not to fret because he doesn't doubt him. He's pretty sure the Demon Palace has done its background check on him, and since they didn't find anything, he is good to go. The bald dude then tells Unseol that he is going to teach him the breathing technique, since he made a promise to the Wandering Beast Pavilion. The bald dude lets Unseol know that he doesn't really care if he learned orthodox or demonic martial arts. However, he lets him know that if he ever teaches someone else the technique he is about to show him, he is going to kill him and everyone close to him. Without hesitation, Unseol assures the bald dude that he is up for the task. Realizing that Unseol is ready, the bald-headed dude introduces himself as Hyol Gumang. Hyol asks Unseol if he knows the difference between the orthodox and demonic internal energy cultivation techniques, and Unseol says no. Hyol explains that the Orthodox Murim's internal energy cultivation techniques are natural ways to build internal energy in the human body, while the demonic path is hell-bent on using every method necessary to gather internal energy. This is basically why they have a bulk load of internal energy from the start, but the methods they use go against the nature of the human body. However, the Orthodox Murim's martial masters end up being superior in the end, thanks to the true qi that they have gathered. Hyol then reveals that the technique he is going to teach Unseol is out of the bounds of the demonic martial arts. He claims that the cultivation technique is the most excellent and miraculous out of all cultivation techniques. However, gaining such power comes with a price because the process of learning is excruciatingly painful. He mentions that he ate his fingers while he was learning the technique. Apparently, those who can endure such immeasurable pain can attain a body that is in complete sync with internal energy. Hyol comes clean, revealing that he was once a martial master of the Azure Dragon Temple, but he was framed for murder and kicked out with his internal energy sealed. It was in the process of recovering the internal energy that he got help from the Wandering Beast Pavilion, and this is why he promised them that he would teach his internal energy cultivation technique as a way of repaying his debt. Since he would have failed his promise if can't teach Unseol the technique, Hyol says he would have to test him first. Hyol tells Unseol that he is going to use his true qi to pierce all 365 of his acupuncture points all at once. He wants to do this to clean his vessels and prepare them to learn the technique. Hyol lets Unseol know that it is going to be painful, and he urges him to back out if he can't endure it. Eunseol, being the stubborn brat that he is, assures Hyul that he is up for the task. Since he is confident that he can go through with it, Hyul unleashes his true chi into Eunseol's body in an attempt to cleanse him. However, Hyul is struck by something so shocking that he has never seen before. He is expecting Eunseol to be shouting in pain because of how painful the process is, but to his surprise, Eunseol is calm and quiet. This is when it dawns on Hyul that there is no bad smell from any impurities coming out of Eunseol's body, meaning Eunseol doesn't have a drop of tainted energy in his vessels. Hyul is so impressed that he excitedly yells out, telling Eunseol that he is going to teach him his internal energy cultivation technique. 6 months later, Eunseol has gone through severe changes that make him look totally different. He has bulked up and doesn't look like the frail kid that he once was. Hyul picks up a boulder and hurls it at Eunseol. Instead of moving or trying to smash the boulder, Eunseol decides to aura farm, and his aura is so much that he shatters the boulder without making a move. Hyul is impressed by this, and he concludes that Eunseol has mastered the technique. Hyul is blown away by the fact that Eunseol was able to learn the technique in just 6 months. In this period, he has been able to disperse the true chi he had collected inside him after learning the circulation technique. Hyul then suggests that they proceed to the next thing on their plate. Eunseol gets into position to circulate his ki, and he is all thankful that Hyul taught him everything because he was able to reach the first level in no time. Nonetheless, Eunseol still thinks he is lagging behind because the circulation technique has 8 levels, and he wants to reach the second level before leaving the mountain. Powered by his immense determination, Eunseol is able to break through to the next level, shocking Hyul. Hyul cannot believe that Eunseol just broke through to the second level, which is the realm of untainted bone and muscle. This is a level that is meant for max toning of the bones and muscles. However, these sudden changes put so much pressure on the body, and just as expected, Eunseol starts feeling the pain. Blood drips out of his mouth as he grits his teeth, determined to push through to the end. Hyul quickly rushes behind Eunseol to support him. He urges him to maintain a blank mind and focus on his goal. Hyul then notices that Eunseol's body is unable to restrain the true chi because of the sudden changes, and with the way things are going, he is just going to end up with severe internal wounds. Without hesitation, Hyul concludes that he has to use his life force to help Eunseol. He places his hand on Eunseol's back and fires his life essence into him to help him push through. By the time Eunseol is done, he realizes that his body is burning with so much energy, and when he turns around, he sees Hyul straining. Eunseol rushes over to check on him, asking him if he gave him his true ki. Hyul can see that Eunseol is worried, and he urges him not to be because he can't actually leave the Wandering Beast Pavilion until Eunseol has learned properly. Eunseol is shocked to hear this as he realizes that Hyul is actually a caring person, even though he tries to portray the face of a tough guy. Eunseol is very grateful for his help, and he assures the man that he is not going to forget what he has done for him. However, Hyul urges Eunseol to forget his existence. Eunseol is shocked to hear this because it is the same thing that Sa-woo said to him during the competition. Hyul then tells Eunseol that the only way he can repay him is if he learns the breathing technique very well and reaches the 8th level, which is the realm of great origin. Eunseol takes a deep breath and assures Hyul that he would reach the stage that he couldn't, because Hyul only made it to the 5th stage. Since Eunseol has reached the 2nd stage already, Hyul tells him that he no longer needs his teachings. He tells Eunseol that the next thing he needs is the basics of martial arts. Hyul then tells Eunseol to climb the cliff at the western edge of the Wandering Beast Pavilion because this is where he is going to train his martial arts. Eunseol is grateful for everything and bows to Hyul in gratitude. 3 months after this, one of the sect's proficient squads, the Wind Cloud, returns to the pavilion. The squad returns to the pavilion flying through the rooftops just to show off because apparently they are the best unit out there. The leader of the squad, Baekyeon, decides to aura farm very well until Dan shows up to welcome him. Baekyeon slowly removes his face mask while addressing Dan formally. Dan reminds him that he already told him to forget about formalities, but Baek refuses, saying the rules of the pavilion have been stretched thin enough as it is. Baek is glad that Dan showed up because he was aiming to see him. Baek demands to know why Dan brought in one of the 10 demon masters, even though he was against the plan in the first place. Dan then reveals that Eunseol was the one who chose the sect because he rejected the Fire Rain sect's offer. Baek is surprised to hear that a youngster chose them. Dan confirms this, saying the decision almost made him fight Wee. Dan then teases Baek, saying he should be proud of Eunseol because he chose them. Baek is not entirely pleased, claiming that the decision is why the Fire Rain sect didn't choose any of the 10 demon masters. Baek screams at Dan, reminding him that their sect is under fire from the Demon Palace, and grabbing Eunseol under their wings just added more fuel to the fire. Dan smiles when he hears this, reminding Baek that the Wandering Beast Pavilion has never concerned itself with the politics of the Murim, because their goal is to master martial arts. Baek is forced to agree with Dan, but but he demands to see Unseol because his position as one of the demon masters is currently at stake. Meanwhile, Unseol had visited another teacher, Go Wall, who was once known as the Grand Thief, thanks to his technique known as the Swift Phantom. Go Wall boasts of his technique, saying everyone who has tried to learn his technique has become crippled because they could not keep up with the rapid changes. Go Wall believes that Unseol is going to join the list of cripples, but to his shock, Unseol masters the technique in just a month. Even though he is shocked and stunned, Go Wall is also pleased that he has found someone who can inherit his legacy. Because of this, he concludes that he is going to close down his dojo. Go Wall tells Unseol that all that is left for him is to master the rest of the technique himself so he can use it in real-life situations. Later on, Baek and Dan decide to check on Unseol. They stand on a cliff, watching Unseol practicing the Swift Phantom technique. Baek confidently says Unseol has no chance, since the technique is a hard one to master. Baek's mouth is left wide open when he sees the way Unseol is moving, leaving him to ask if Unseol has been practicing the move since he arrived at the pavilion. Dan corrects this, saying Unseol has learned another technique when he joined. It starts to dawn on Baek that the rumor about Unseol learning the wild beast path in 2 weeks is true, and Dan confirms this. Dan mentions that Sawu gave Unseol all of his spiritual water, and he believes that this is what helped him to open the transcendental nerve earlier. Baek disagrees, saying the spiritual water alone is not enough to help him master the technique. Dan then mentions that he is in charge of everything at the moment because the pavilion master is still in isolation. Baek then mentions that the 10 demonic sects all have an issue with the way the 10 demon masters situation has played out so far. Apparently, the real reason they created the 10 demon masters program was to nurture prodigies that are capable of killing the orthodox masters. Baek confirms this, but says some of the demonic sects were unaware, which is why they sent their successors for the competition. Dan believes that this is not supposed to be an issue, but Baek lets him know that a big problem has arisen from this. It turns out that the White Demon Temple leader's only son, Kang Morion, died all thanks to Unseol. Dan doesn't really feel pity for what happened because he believes that it is a skill issue, since they were all aware of the risk attached to the competition. Baek adds that the White Demon Temple is not the only sect after Unseol's life, but the Fire Rain sect is also pissed. Apparently, they are not happy with the fact that Unseol used the unrivaled lightning and thunder technique, and he is not even their disciple. Wai has been calling for disciplinary action because of this, and Xian was even punished by being kicked out of his position. Dan is surprised that they are still aiming to punish Unseol even after they have punished the person who taught him. Baek then reveals that they actually want to test Unseol to see if he is really qualified to be one of the 10 demon masters. If he fails to prove himself, he will be stripped of the opportunity to use the sword ever again. The two are still in the middle of this conversation when Unseol leaps over from where he is to join them. Dan commends him for his training so far and then introduces him to Baek. Just as usual, Unseol bows his head in respect to Baek, and Baek wastes no time opening his mouth, saying there is something he wants to discuss with Unseol. Dan quickly jumps in, telling Baek to stop because there is no use telling Unseol. However, Unseol cuts in, telling the two that he is ready to take responsibility, since it is something that happened because of him. This is when it dawns on the two that Unseol must have heard their discussion. Unseol apologizes if he was too forward, revealing that he was using the Wandering Beast Path's Chi Vibration Mind's Eye. Baek is left in disbelief, forcing him to ask Unseol if he was also doing that while using movement techniques. Unseol confirms this, mentioning that he basically followed the vibrations of the water's surface. Baek is ultimately shocked, but Dan is already getting used to the weird things that Unseol does. Baek is happy that they have a genius among them, and he suggests that they place their faith in him. Dan is shocked to hear that Baek is suggesting that they sent Unseol to the Demon Palace for the test when they are aiming to kill him. Baek argues, saying the Demon Palace only wants to help the White Demon Temple leader feel better, not to kill Unseol. This is basically why they chose the Demon Palace as the site for the test, not the White Demon Temple or the Fire Rain Sword sect. Baek lets Dan know that things would only get progressively worse if he rejects the request. The two are still arguing among themselves when Unseol cuts in, saying he is ready to go. Unseol says that since they are looking to improve their image, killing him would only make it worse. In addition, Unseol says he is a proud disciple of the Wandering Beast Pavilion, and he is not looking to avoid any fight that comes his way. Baek agrees with Unseol, telling Dan that this is the only way they can avoid getting bothered in the future. Dan finds himself backed into a corner, and he is forced to agree. However, he tells Unseol that if he manages to pass the test, he must make sure to get the aggrieved sects to promise to overlook what has happened in the past. With everyone in agreement, Unseol heads to the Demon Palace, and while entering the gate, he realizes that things have changed a lot compared to the first time he walked through the same gates. One of the attendants led him to the Grand Hall of the Demon Palace and informed him that he was going to be attended to by another person once he was inside the hall. Eunseol stares directly into the Grand Hall of the Demon Palace, which is in charge of all administrative matters in the Demon Palace. It is basically the General Strategist's pavilion in the Murim Alliance, and it is where he is going to take the test to prove that he is worthy. Eunseol steps into the hall, where he is introduced to the Grand Hall's master, Baek Jeoncheon. The moment Jeoncheon sets his eyes on Eunseol, he compliments his ki because he has heard so much about it. Jeoncheon then asks Eunseol if he is aware of why he had to come and the rift between the 10 demonic sects. Eunseol is forced to ask the man if the Demon Palace and the 10 demonic sects are separate entities. When Eunseol asks this, Jeoncheon realizes that the Wandering Beast Pavilion didn't explain the situation to Eunseol. Jeoncheon then explains that the Demon Palace is a union of the demonic path sects, which comprises the 10 demonic sects. Although the two can't be separated, they still can't be considered as one entity. Jeoncheon says someone from one of the demonic sects is usually chosen to become the Demon Palace Master, but the former Palace Master wasn't. He then adds that not all of the demonic paths are on good terms with the Demon Palace. Eunseol finally understands the situation, and this is the fact that the two entities are just cooperative, but there are loads of demonic path sects that hate the Demon Palace. Jeoncheon comes clean, saying the 10 Demon Masters' plan wasn't meant to pick the successors for the 10 demonic sects, but to nurture talents who will terminate the orthodox martial masters. To put it simply, the 10 Demon Masters competition was the Demon Palace's plan to wipe out the higher-ups of the orthodox Murim Alliance. Apparently, the 10 demonic sects initially rejected the plan, but the Demon Palace continued to pressure them until they had no choice but to send their disciples. However, some of the disciples died during the competition, and it is because of Eunseol that the Demon Palace has found itself in an awkward position. Jeoncheon reveals that he invited Eunseol to punish him under the guise that he is taking an exam. He asks Eunseol if he is aware of this fact, and Eunseol says yes. Jeoncheon is pleased to hear that Eunseol came prepared for the exam, and after talking for so long, Jeoncheon suggests that they get right to the point. Jeoncheon mentions that the White Demon Temple and the Fire Rain sect have both done Eunseol a favor by granting him access to the 10,000 Demonic Truth Pavilion. Apparently, it is a hall filled with archives that Eunseol can check out, and Jeoncheon hands him a golden plaque that will give him access to the hall. It turns out that there are 3 floors in the hall, and the plaque allows him to enter the first floor, which is the lowest of all floors. However, even the said hall has about 25,000 different books of martial arts, which Jeoncheon believes will be a great advantage for Eunseol. They are basically doing Eunseol this favor because there is a very low chance of him passing the exam, so they are trying to make sure no one says anything bad about them. After telling him all of these, Jeoncheon tells him that the exam is for him to endure 5 attacks from a martial master chosen specifically by the White Demon Temple. Jeoncheon reveals that the head instructor actually let go of his position to make sure that Eunseol went through in the competition. When Jeoncheon asked him why he did this, he simply replied that Jeoncheon would see very soon. Since the exam is coming up, Jeoncheon says he is expecting to see what the head instructor meant by this. After receiving the plaque, Eunseol steps into the lobby, and this is when he runs into Jin-gak. Eunseol is surprised to see Jin-gak in the Demon Palace, and Jin-gak explains that he has a lot of connections inside the Grand Hall. Basically, he was the head instructor's assistant on Hell Island because he was substituting for the Grand Hall's master, who was absent during the time of the competition. Jin-gak then spots the plaque in Eunseol's hand, prompting him to ask if he is visiting the Truth Pavilion for the exam. Eunseol confirms this, and because Eunseol was once his student, Jin-gak decides to give him one piece of advice. Jin-gak lets him know that the Jianghu is a dangerous place, and there is no kind gesture that is done without a reason. Jin-gak says there is always some kind of ill intention or scheme behind everything. After he is done saying this, Jin-gak tells Eunseol that he is trusting him to find an opportunity, even in the midst of danger. He also adds that trees grow from their roots, which is basically speaking in parables. Eunseol thanks Jin-gak for the advice, and Jin lets him know that he is rooting for him. Moments later, Eunseol arrives at the 10,000 Demonic Truth Pavilion, which is a very large structure. Upon entering, Eunseol can see that the library is not a regular one, and he is blown away by the fact that all of the books in the room are martial arts techniques. After walking through for a couple of minutes, Eunseol could see that it was really a trap. Even though the entire room is filled with secret martial arts, they are not something he can learn in the space of one day. If he tries doing this, he is just going to end up wasting his time, and he is pretty sure that this is what his ops wants. Realizing that the Fire Rain sect and the White Demon Temple are trying to mess with his concentration, Eunseol figures out that it is his job to remain focused and steadfast. Just then, Eunseol remembers what Jin-gak said about trees growing from their roots, and it suddenly dawns on him what he is supposed to do. Eunseol starts running around the building until he finally finds a book on the Wandering Beast reversal technique, which is a book from the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Eunseol excitedly opens the book, but he is shocked by what he finds inside. After his grace is finally over, the day of the exam finally arrives. Eunseol steps into the exam arena where he is addressed by an elder, Gok Gyobong, the supervisor for the exam. There is also Yu Eunseong present on the scene, and he is from the Fire Rain Sword sect. There is also a representative from the Wandering Beast Pavilion, Nyong Gak, and the last person is Go Gunpyeong, who is from the White Demon Temple. Gok tells Eunseol that the White Temple wishes to test his capabilities as one of the 10 demon masters. Gok then turns to the representatives of the Fire Rain sect and the White Demon Temple to ask them if they are going to let go of their grudges if Eunseol manages to pass the test. The two representatives excitedly tell Gok that they are never going to bring back the past if Eunseol survives the test. Since they are in agreement, Gok declares the test open. Go walks into the arena and tells Eunseol that he is expected to endure or block 5 moves from him. Before coming for the exam, Go had been given explicit orders to kill Eunseol. However, Go is empathic towards the Wandering Beast Pavilion's image, and because of this, he plans to relieve Eunseol of his arms on the 5th move. Go then makes his move, and Eunseol is blown away by the fact that Go just launched his attack without having to prepare, which shows how skilled the dude is. The attack aims straight for Eunseol, but he is able to jump backwards, ultimately dodging the first move. Without wasting time, Go makes his next move, and Eunseol soon finds himself being targeted by loads of branched attacks, forcing him to run through the arena just to try and dodge the move. Go is impressed that Eunseol was able to see through the move, which is thanks to his wild beast senses. However, Go lets him know that he is not in the clear, yet. Before Eunseol knows it, the 3rd move is already on him, and this one appears like the rain. The entire arena is covered with attacks meant to take him down. Because Eunseol is confused about what's real or not, he figures out that dodging everything would be better for him. Without hesitation, he kicks into overdrive in an attempt to dodge the attack. The attack finally hits, leaving a loud explosion. But when the dust settles, Go is shocked to see Eunseol standing with just a slight cut to his cheek. It turns out that Eunseol was able to dodge everything thanks to the swift phantom technique. Eunseol knows that he would have died if Go meant to kill him right after the attack landed. Go, on the other hand, is disappointed that he was not able to hit Eunseol as much as he wanted to, and with the way things are going, he might not be able to cut off his arms. Go then decides to get more serious as he cooks up the 4th move, the White Demon Heart Strike. The attack looks like a flash of light, leaving Eunseol isolated and scared that he doesn't have what it takes to dodge the attack. Without a doubt, Eunseol is pretty sure that he is going to die if he fails to dodge the attack. Eunseol then remembers the martial arts book that he found in the pavilion. He was shocked when he opened to see the book only to find out that the first few pages are dedicated to trash-talking the Wandering Beast Pavilion. However, the latter parts of the book detail the weaknesses of the Wandering Beast path. Eunseol figures out that the insults were in the beginning to make sure that only the disciples of the Wandering Beast path read it. Inside the book, Eunseol learns that as a martial artist, he is expected to use his senses and think. He is also expected to amplify the said senses when it is needed. Now that Eunseol is in a dire situation, he follows the instructions of the books to amplify his senses just at the last minute. With this, he is able to dodge the White Demon Heart Strike technique, leaving everyone shocked right where they are. Go cannot believe what he is witnessing because even the martial masters of the White Demon Temple struggled to dodge the said attack. Go finally realizes why the Fire Rain sect and the White Demon Temple wanted Eunseol gone. He has also seen that Eunseol would only grow up to be a thorn in their flesh, and because of this, Go finally decides that Eunseol needs to be eliminated. Go decides to use the very powerful technique White Demon Divine Serpent as his 5th move, aiming to kill Eunseol once and for all. Eunseol initially dodges the strike, but before he knows it, he realizes that the weapon is actually following him with the strong intent to send him to the afterlife. Apparently, the White Demon Divine Serpent is a very dangerous weapon because it doesn't stop until it sheds blood. With this in mind, Go is pretty sure that Eunseol is about to lose his head. Realizing that he can't escape the attack, Eunseol resorts to the use of the unrivaled lightning and thunder technique. Eunseol holds his hand as the attack hits, leaving a bright golden flash. However, this is still not enough to repel the attack, and after holding on for a few seconds, the serpent finally forces his way through, piercing Eunseol's shoulder. The force from this sends Eunseol flying into the distance, but he refuses to fall on his back. He crashes to his knees, and even though his right arm has lost mobility, Eunseol grabs his sword with his left hand. Eunseol raises his head, and he looks intimidatingly dangerous as he showcases his will to continue the fight. Go is impressed, and at the same time, he is scared that Eunseol will go ahead to cause them problems in the future. Because of this, he decides that it is in their best interest to take Eunseol out of the picture. Just as he is about to cook up another move, the representative from the Wandering Beast Pavilion grabs his arm, reminding him that he has exhausted the 5 moves he was given already. Go snatches his hand from Gak, trying to act all pissed off because he touched him. However, Gak responds with a fierce look, assuring Go that he has no obligation to honor the deal he made with the Demon Palace if Go is trying to be dishonorable. Just then, the representative from the Fire Rain sect cuts in, saying Unseol used a technique from his sect during the test. He suggests that they nullify the test because of this, since this was their complaint in the first place. Gak immediately speaks up, telling the dude that he is already testing the waters because there is no condition where they said Unseol cannot use the unrivaled lightning and thunder technique. Gak then adds that Xian would have been proud that Unseol even used the technique. The representative is pissed when he hears this, as he believes that Gak is trying to ridicule his sect. Gak clears the air, saying, Go just used the most powerful technique of the White Demon arts, but Unseol was able to repel it, using the unrivaled thunder technique. Gak says the only explanation for this is that the Fire Rain technique is superior to that of the White Demon Temple. The moment he says this, Gak immediately creates a rift between the Fire Rain sect and the White Demon Temple, since the Fire Rain sect cannot let go of an opportunity that crowns them as the superior sect. Because of this, the Fire Rain sect has no choice but to back off. Gak then informs everyone that the promise that was made will be honored. He declares that Unseol has now regained his title as one of the 10 demon masters, and he is also allowed to use the sword. After the declaration, Gak turns to Unseol's direction to tell him that he has proven himself. Just then, he notices how Unseol is staring at him. Gak goes close to help him rest up, and he realizes that Unseol had already fainted while he was still standing. Soon afterward, Unseol wakes up in a strange room again. He is shocked to see this, and he wonders why he keeps waking up in exclusive rooms. He then remembers the test, and he is worried that he might fail. He wonders what would happen if he fails the test. Since the situation is currently out of his control, he decides to sit down and circulate his chi in the meantime. While doing this, he realizes that he has a bulk load of true chi in his body, and he remembers Hyol's words telling him that he has 10 years worth of true chi in his system. Apparently, the chi would be more accessible when his acupoint is activated, and with what he is feeling inside him, he believes that the test has activated his acupoint. Before he realizes it, Unseol reaches the 3rd level of the reverse polarity cultivation technique, which is the realm that provides invulnerability to fire and water. Unseol is in the middle of this when an attendant enters the room, and she tells him that he is currently in the Demon Gathering Pavilion. Basically, this is where the Elder Pavilion Master lives. Unseol is shocked when he hears this, as he was expecting to have found himself in a medicinal hall, not the Elder Pavilion. Unseol starts trembling because he knows just how important and crazy the Elder Pavilion is. He is known as the Blood Demon, and he is one of the 3 demons and 3 venerables, who sits at the peak of martial arts. The attendant then introduces herself, saying she is Jin Seol, and the elder has asked her to bring Unseol to the inner hall. Unseol is even more concerned when he hears this, and Seol lets him know that the elder is waiting for him in the inner hall. On their way to the inner hall, they move through a beautiful garden that leaves Unseol mesmerized. He finally arrives at the inner hall where the elder is waiting for him. The elder serves him tea before congratulating him on passing the test from the Fire Rain sect and the White Demon Temple. Unseol thanks the elder for his goodwill, and after drinking the tea, the elder asks him how the tea tastes. Unseol answers honestly, saying he is not well versed in the tea business, so he can't particularly say this is how it feels. The elder wants to know more about Unseol, but before proceeding, he introduces himself as Jok Bung. Unseol is left in awe because he can't believe he is sitting in front of the demon who swept through the Jianghu to kill countless orthodox martial masters. Unseol knows that he might not have recognized the old man if he had not heard about him before. After Unseol is done offering his greetings, the old man says he is a bit different from what he has heard. Even though Unseol learned martial arts very late, his muscles and joints are actually flexible. In addition, he has good inner energy, and Unseol explains that his grandfather taught him how to breathe properly while growing up. Bung then tells Unseol that he brought him to his quarters instead of the medicinal hall because he would like to speak with him in private. Bung then makes a very serious offer, telling Unseol that he would like him to come to the Demon Palace after he is done training in the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Bung says the Wandering Beast Pavilion might be part of the demonic sects, but they have a system that doesn't align with the other sects. Bung lets Unseol know that after 3 years of coming to the Demon Palace, Bung is going to meet with the Demon Palace Master to induct Unseol as a member of the Dark Heaven Squad. This is a big offer because the Dark Heaven Squad is the most elite squad in the Demon Palace, alongside the Heaven Slaying Squad and the Soul Annihilation Squad. Bung says the moment he joins the Dark Heaven Squad, his journey to become one of the higher-ups in the Demon Palace is already set. Bung then asks Unseol what he thinks of the offer, and without even thinking for a minute, Unseol rejects the offer, forcing Bung to ask him why this is. With a calm voice, Unseol explains that learning the martial arts of the Wandering Beast Pavilion requires him to risk his life, and if there is a position guaranteed to him before he even starts, he is going to become complacent. Bung hears this and bursts into laughter, saying he absolutely loves Unseol's response. Bung mentions Unseol has the type of attitude that a martial artist is supposed to have, Just from laughing alone, Bung is emitting such strong waves that Yoonseol can feel his insides twisting. Bung then tells Yoonseol that he will continue watching him because he wants to see how much he will grow in the next 3 years. Bung tells Yoonseol that he is going to see him again in the next 3 years, and Yoonseol quickly figures out that Bung is already dismissing him. Yoonseol thanks Bung for his time and then leaves. After he is gone, one of the masters appears from behind, telling Bung that this is the first time he will see someone reject such an offer. Bung smiles, telling the master that they have to keep an eye on Eunseol to see which side he later chooses. After making it to a safe distance, Eunseol finally gets to breathe, and he realizes that he almost died just from being in the elder's presence. Eunseol knows that he would have been dead meat if he had made a stupid mistake when he was in the old man's presence. Eunseol is still battling with the repercussions of his meeting with the old man when someone taps him from behind, asking him if he is fine. This is when it finally dawns on Eunseol that he has made it into town already. He looks around to reel in the peaceful energy that has been missing in his life for a very long time. Eunseol realizes that he has gotten himself mixed up with a life he never thought he would. Suddenly, he realizes that he is being tailed, and his first instinct is to get himself a weapon. He proceeds to a weapons shop and tells the attendant that he wants a weapon that he can just use for practice. The man then points Eunseol to a bunch of weapons sitting in the corner, telling him to make his choice. Eunseol picks the one that suits him and then makes his way to a secluded area outside town. Once he figures out that he is where he can properly react, he tells whoever is following him to make themselves seen. Just then, a bunch of martial artists dressed as ninjas emerge from the bush, commending Eunseol for having such sharp senses. Eunseol soon finds himself surrounded, and the leader of the elimination team tells Eunseol that they are there to kill him before he finishes his training. Acting cool as ever, Eunseol tells the assassins that he doesn't know them, but he has no interest in killing them, so he urges them to leave. The assassins reply boldly, telling Eunseol that he is the one who is about to die. Since the assassins won't budge, Eunseol decides to speak the only language that they understand, which is violence. He unsheathes his sword, but the assassins still believe he has no chance against them. The assassins immediately get into formation, and Eunseol finds himself surrounded with a plan to attack him at once. Eunseol decides not to act rashly, and before he knows it, they are all over him, trying to get his head off his neck. Eunseol manages to block the first wave of attack, and he figures out that the assassins have a tight attack coordination without any rest in between. He easily figures out that the team has been working together for a long time, which is why their attacks are synchronized. Even though their teamwork is amazing, Eunseol has been able to deduce something thanks to the wild beast's senses. He realizes that they don't have a uniform skill set, and there are gaps between their skill sets. He believes that he can use this against them, and this is what he does without hesitation. Before they know it, he takes down one of them, shocking the assassins, who were not expecting Eunseol to figure out their attack pattern. Apparently, they are from the Wundang sect and believe that their pattern should be out of Eunseol's reach. The assassins start wondering if the Demon Palace has started teaching the demonic masters how to break the orthodox formations. Refusing to give up, the leader of the team screams out, telling his soldiers to assume the third formation. Unknown to them, Eunseol is not tracking them with their formation or patterns, but the difference in their skills. They charge at him, but just like before, Eunseol cuts down 2 dudes. At this point, the assassins start panicking because they don't expect Eunseol to know greater sword techniques. Eunseol then clears the air, telling them that he is not using martial arts against them. He lets them know that what they are looking at is his struggle to survive. Eunseol adds that the assassins are losing because they were so confident that they were superior to him, but he, on the other hand, is fighting for his life at stake. The leader of the elimination team starts shaking because he has always had the feeling that they were the predator. But Eunseol has changed things up. They have essentially become the prey while Eunseol is now the one hunting them. Realizing that Eunseol is the devil they don't want to mess with, one of the assassins suggests that they retreat and gather their strength. This makes his partner mad and he cuts him down, claiming that the dude is a coward with no honor. Eunseol then asks the assassin leader if honor is more important to him than his own life. In his defense, he claims that they are not wielding the sword for personal glory like the demonic sect. He maintains the fact that they fight for honor, and this makes Eunseol pretty mad. He remembers his father in the coffin, and he goes after the assassins harder than before. Eunseol moved so fast that the assassin leader only saw him after he was done skewering him and his teammates. The assassin crashes to the ground and talks about how Eunseol has become one of the demons. He starts saying trash like cursing Eunseol in the afterlife, but Eunseol doesn't care because they are the ones lying in the dirt, not him. Eunseol is surprised that he is forced to kill people even after he has left Hell Island. This basically tells him that he is trapped in an environment of violence, and there is no escape for him. However, he is not worried because he considers this a price that he has to pay for walking the path of vengeance. Just then, a carriage arrives on the scene, and Beck steps out from inside the carriage, looking pleased by what he is staring at.